Digital Domain Park in Port St. Lucie, Florida, the New York Mets open their spring training schedule against the Washington Nationals. New York Mets spring training on SNY is presented by Citi.
Hey, spring training starting again.
Spring training indeed, a time when hope is at its highest, a time for getting in shape and getting ready for the season to come, now just a month away. Young players trying to make an impression, and players on the further horizon trying to show what they've got. As Sandy Alderson puts together his second Mets team, they've got all sorts of question marks and guys trying to return from injury, guys trying to learn new positions, get sharper at the position they already have, and maybe the biggest comeback of them all, well, that's the guy with number 57 on his back. He'll be coming back from major shoulder surgery, trying to play a big part for Terry Collins in his second year as skipper. And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Digital Domain Park. I'm Gary Cohen, Keith Hernandez, and Ron Darling alongside. The Mets begin their 50th anniversary season a month from today. Today, their first exhibition game, and we begin our 7th year of Mets baseball on SNY. So happy to have you with us. It's a year of opportunity for the New York Mets. Young players trying to make their mark. Lucas Duda, Ruben Tejada trying to become the core of a team to try and build for the future. But you've also got veteran players who may have not had their best year last year or maybe returning from injury. Jason Bay, David Wright, and perhaps most importantly, coming back from a season on the sidelines and really maybe the linchpin of the Mets season this year, Johan Santana.
Well, absolutely. I'm from the school of thought that I think this Mets team has to have Santana open the season. And when you look at the rest of the starting staff, what can they do to do a better job and get off to a quicker start? You got guys like Pelfrey. Can he keep the ball in the ballpark a little better this year? They only have to tweak it a little more. Can Jonathan Neese stay in the rotation all season long? Can Dylan G get a little better, make that next step? And can R.A. Dickey get off to a quicker start? Those are just little things that I think if they can fix, they can get off to the quick start that they will need.
Offensively, the Mets have to find a way to substitute for the loss of Jose Reyes, and that all starts with a guy we got to see quite a bit of last year in Ruben Tejada.
Well, Ruben Tejada last year surprised a lot, had a good year with the bat, hit .284, and showed a lot of patience at the plate. There's a chance for him down the road here. You know, the leadoff spot's kind of up for grabs, and Tejada could very well be that leadoff hitter. They've got Andres Torres that's coming off a bad year. He sparked the Giants in 2010. He's the center fielder. And Duda last year in 100 games drove in 50 runs and hit 10 home runs and showed a lot of patience at the plate as well. Hey, when you're playing for a team, when you're a young kid, this is a good ball club to be on. It's going to be very interesting to watch these two young players. They're critical. And you must also remember you've got Daniel Murphy at second base, and a lot of players got hurt last year. They need to stay healthy. This lineup is very balanced. I think there'll be a lineup that's going to score runs.
Well, Terry Collins and many of the players have been down here in Florida since the middle of January, getting ready for this day, the first day when they face another team. As the Collins era, year 2, gets underway, Mets exhibition baseball begins coming up.
From St. Petersburg, Florida, here is New York's new National League Baseball team, the New York Mets.
That's how Bob Murphy opened the broadcast for the first Mets spring training game 50 years ago. Now in their 50th anniversary season, the Mets open their spring training schedule today. We mentioned that Terry Collins has been down here since January. Close on his heels on the New York to St. Lucie Express was Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin, you've seen a lot already this spring. What's impressed you?
You know, I think there's been a couple main storylines down here, Gary. Number one has obviously been the ace, Johan Santana. I mean, every time he's taken the mound, spring, sunflower seeds in the air. All eyes have been on him. And I think the one thing about Johan, who's smiling right behind me in the dugout, ready to go, are his emotions. You know, you could tell he's having a little fun, but he's also taking it seriously. And I think he is starting to believe that his shoulder is going to be all right. He's had some good bullpen sessions, but of course now we find out how the hitters react and how they'll do and what they'll tell him about his stuff. But Terry Collins said the other day, you know, really the thing is, it's just about him getting healthy to April. That's the one story. Guys, the other story has been Field 7 down here at the Mets complex in Port St. Lucie. Field 7, you see, is an exact replica of what Citi Field will be like now the fences have been pulled in. And what the Mets did, they left the old fences up so hitters could really see the difference. And I was there the first time that the hitters took BP on that field, and it was a difference. And I'll tell you why. Because they watched every ball fly out of there, and it was a difference. There were about 10 baseballs that day that went over the new fence, but not over the old fence. There was one shot by Jason Bay. He took it to right center field. He watched it. It went over. He nodded his head in approval. I'm not saying this is going to translate into the regular season, but I think mentally it'll help. And I think if nothing else, guys, there are no more excuses. You cannot go in and say, hey, this is a tough park. Not anymore. It's a fair park to play. We've got the first pitch of the first spring training game. Dylan G on the mound for the Mets. They take on the Nats. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
It's a gorgeous evening in Port St. Lucie. Temperature 66 degrees. Here's the starting lineup for the Washington Nationals, brought to you by Toyota. None of their regulars are here, but probably the most exciting player in Nats camp is Bryce Harper, just 19 years old, might be on the opening day roster for Davey Johnson's Nats, and he's playing right field. Dylan G set to get things started. And the first pitch of the first spring training game is in for a strike.
Well, in their 50-year history, one of the finest rookie campaigns by Dylan G. Started the season 7-0, and you saw that 13-6 record at the end.
And you see the biggest change for Dylan as a smash to short is handled easily by Tejada for the first out. Biggest change for Dylan is that large growth on his chin. Now, he said every winter he plays around with some kind of facial hair, but that his wife approves, and he likes it, and he's going to stay with this.
Looks like King Tut from the Batman series, doesn't he? A little bit?
Yes. Here's Steve Lombardozzi Jr., whose dad was part of the 1987 Minnesota Twins World Championship team, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and ran into a major member of that team the other day, Frank Viola.
Frankie V.
Who is slated to be in Savannah this year as the pitching coach. Lombardozzi goes through on the half swing, and it's 0-2.
Stephen's dad for that team hit .344 in the postseason for that 1987 team.
Lombardozzi had a cup of coffee with the Nats the end of last year. Hit .309 in the minors last season. Of course, he's got Danny Espinosa ahead of him at second base. And there's Davey Johnson, who took over last year at midseason and has been a large presence for the Nats this spring, telling his players they need to relax. Change up by G, and it's 1-2.
He also was talking about their talent. You know how Davey, well, he can get a little rambunctious when he likes the talent on his team. He doesn't mind making a few predictions.
There was a question whether he was going to come back after last season, and we talked with Davey towards the end of the year, and he wasn't sure in September if he wanted to come back, but there he is in uniform.
And why wouldn't he? With the talent that is brewing to the surface with this Nationals franchise. Lombardozzi lifts one to left, and Jason Bay steadies. 2 away. It's not much breeze tonight. What is blowing in, but it's only about 5 miles an hour.
Third baseman, number 30, Harvey.
We'll take a look at the Mets defense, brought to you by Lexus. You see Andres Torres, the new center fielder for the Mets, required in the offseason. Last year with the Giants. Duda getting a full chance to play every day. Tejada likewise at short. David Wright, of course, with the rib cage. Turner at third.
There's Mark Tien hitting third in the order, playing third base. Of course, that position belongs to Ryan Zimmerman, who was awarded this offseason with a new 6-year, $100 million contract. Tien, former Oakland first-round draft choice, and G seems to have his changeup in midseason form. It's 1-1.
He had an unusual start to his career. He was traded over to Kansas City. In 05, he started opening day at third base. 06 left field. 07 right field. And 08 second base. 4 different positions starting in 4 years for Kansas City.
1-2 to Tien. Well, the Nats won 80 games last year, and the Mets are going to have to contend with this team in the years going forward in a division that seems to be stocked with talent.
Everybody improved. The Nationals are loaded with starting pitching, and they've got like 3 guys fighting for that 5th spot in the rotation, and they got themselves positioned to make possibly a deal late in spring to bolster probably their offense. I mean, they are a top-heavy right-hand hitting ball club.
She runs it just inside. It's 3-2.
Well, they're so pitching rich that the guy who was opened up their seasons the last couple of years, John Lannert, who's pitching tonight, is fighting for that 5th spot.
Now the 3-2, and Tien goes down swinging. Strong start for Dylan G as he gets the Nats 1-2-3. The Mets will come to bat for Terry Collins in the bottom of the first with no score. Here's your Geico Mets starting lineup for the first spring training game. Significant by his absence, David Wright, who's battling a bit of a ribcage problem. Nothing serious, but he should miss a few days. And so Justin Turner, who had a big hand in the success the Mets had last year, in his stead. Ike Davis, who missed most of last year, back in there despite Valley Fever, which has been the big headline the last few days. Doesn't seem like it adds up to a whole lot. Andres Torres, the new Mets center fielder, switch hitter, leads off against the now veteran left-hander John Lannon. And the former Giant Torres takes a strike.
Well, John Lannon has really been steady Eddie for this organization. Doesn't throw very hard, knows how to pitch, knows how to keep the ball down. Career high last year with 10 wins.
And as Ronnie mentioned, opening day starter 2 years in a row, and now fighting for the 5th starter job when you've got a rotation that has Steven Strasburg and Jordan Zimmerman and the newly acquired Gio Gonzalez and Edwin Jackson. That is, they're stacked.
Really stacked.
I mean, it's Lannon and Chen-Ming Wang and Ross Detweiler competing for that 5th job. 2-1 to Torres.
And probably the one advantage for Lannon is the fact that he's a left-hander. I always like to have 2 lefties in the starting rotation.
And Gio Gonzalez coming over his first year in this league as a left-hander. He's going to have quite an advantage.
So the numbers there on Torres substantially diminished from his numbers in 2010 when the Giants won the World Series, and Torres was really a folk hero in their rise that year, but had some injury problems last year. Came over to the Mets along with a very significant reliever in Ramon Ramirez in the deal that sent Angel Pagan to San Francisco. Two from Lannon. And it misses low inside.
You know, during the opening, I spent some time talking about the starting pitching, but once we get past the starters, we'll talk about that Mets bullpen, which I know was a big place where they improved this offseason.
Well, Torres has got to get on base like any leadoff hitter. He struck out 95 times last year for the Giants.
And he gets on base to lead off this game. So the Mets get the leadoff man on against Lannon.
And we'll take a look at the Nats defense, brought to you by Citi, and you can see that lineup out there. There's not any starters out there today. The guy of interest is, of course, Bryce Harper out in right field, the big #1 draft pick, and highly touted, of course. And Roger Bernardina has a shot to get a start and to be the starting center fielder, but playing left today.
Well, here's Daniel Murphy, and many eyes on Daniel this spring as Torres takes off first pitch. The throw by Flores not in time, and so Torres, who stole 19 bases last year, steals on the first offering, and he's in scoring position with nobody else.
Well, this is something you didn't see back in our day, Ronnie. Guys were kind of getting in the shape, didn't start stealing bases till around maybe halfway through spring.
I don't care who you are, though. When you're traded to a new organization, you want to make an impact as soon as you can, and he has.
And you know, Keith, you made the point during the open about Ruben Tejada maybe eventually being the leadoff hitter. Well, Andres Torres thinks that he's the leadoff hitter, and he needs to show the skills that will solidify in Terry Collins' mind that he belongs there. And a walk and a stolen base in your first plate appearance, that's the first step.
Absolutely. And competition is a good thing. It always brings out the best in players. And I might add something here in that regards to leadoff, Gary. Is that, you know, when the Cardinals in the 80s, we had Ozzie Smith and Tommy Herr. Tommy Herr hit second, Ozzie hit 8th. If Tommy was in a slump and Ozzie was hot, Whitey moved Ozzie up in the lineup. And Collins has the same luxury. He can, if Tejada's red hot and Torres is slumping, they can flip-flop him.
Murphy in an 0-2 hole. Daniel hit .320 last year before his season was shortened by a knee injury, and he promptly bangs one up the middle for a base hit. Torres hitting home. Ankiel with that strong arm, and Torres able to score despite the efforts by Flores to block him off the line. And the Mets have a 1-0 lead. So Daniel Murphy behind in the count, wraps one up the middle, and the Mets have their first run of the spring.
Murph, that very short stroke, and Murph hits left-handers well. We know he can hit, and then the Ankiel here prevents Murph from advancing because he was hitting the cutoff man. The cutoff man, the first baseman, was there, so a good throw by Ankiel. We've seen enough of Ankiel defensively. He is a fine outfielder. It's just a matter of whether he hits or not.
We've seen plays like that where he's thrown the ball on the fly to home plate and gotten the guy by 10 feet. Here's Justin Turner with a run in and nobody out. Turner playing third base today in place of David Wright.
who did some work inside today with the Mets strength and conditioning coordinator Brad Andrus, and probably be out on the field the next couple of days, maybe playing by the end of the week. I think right now the Mets are exercising an extra degree of caution with David, keeping him off the field.
Oh, there's 31 spring games.
And Turner lashes one to right center. Over comes Harper to pick it off. And back to first goes Murph, one away.
Yeah, you got 31 games you're playing in the course of spring training, and if you're going to get injury, any kind of injury, you want to get it early, not late. There's Dave.
Well, also, you know, when you look at this Mets team, there's a lot of offensive talent, I think. I think that if everybody's healthy, I think they'll hit. And, you know, they scored a lot of runs last year, and even after Beltran and then Reyes were gone, they were able to keep their offense intact. But what they don't have is a lot of depth. And with Scott Hairston already on the shelf with an oblique injury that looks a lot more serious than what David's going through, I think the main task for Terry Collins, and he even said this before the game tonight, is just to keep people healthy, keep them on the field.
Well, I totally agree. The depth is a problem. The players that are on the field can play this game. But if you're thinking about what Keith was saying about Wright and playing in spring training games, Mets had a veteran player who didn't play in any spring training games last year. Beltran had a pretty good year, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Davis hits a double play ball. Lombardozzi and Blanco turn it over. 4-6-3 to end the inning. But the Mets put up a run. Andres Torres gets on, steals a base, and comes in with the first run of the spring. A little shimmer out on the horizon as the sun sets in Port St. Lucie. Dylan G out for his second inning. Chad Tracy leads off for the Nationals. Tracy spent last year playing in Japan for the Hiroshima Carp. Last big league action with the Cubs and Marlins in 2010. Former Diamondback. And he bounces one toward the middle. Murphy backs off for it and makes the play, one away. So G has retired the first four. And Kevin Burkhardt is standing by with the Mets bowling champ.
Well, there's a lot of things to get to before we get to baseball. First of all, a 279. You missed a perfect game by a pin. Was that how close were you? And how close is that last pin to going down?
Well, you know, got in a groove right there, and I had some fun last night with the guys out there at Molinelli, and threw the ball where I wanted it. Just 2-pin didn't carry, and left a 7-pin, but came back and got it, and had some fun.
Are you, we're talking to Tim Burdick, by the way. Are you clicheing me on a bowling night? Is that what you're doing?
Oh, of course. You have to. Right out of the chute, day one of camp, games, let's get after it.
You had your goatee is back to normal color. It was blonde. You were at one point of this camp Hulk Hogan. You have taken on the role of, I don't know, class clownish type of thing. How important is that, though, to lighten the mood as you have done in this camp?
Well, I think it's important to have a nice atmosphere around there. You want to be loose. You want these guys to enjoy it and stuff like that, and have some fun. So
they can't kill. Hits one out. The Nationals tie up the game.
I just want to go out there and, like I said, have these younger guys that are in camp understand that, you know what, you got a job to do up here, but at the same time, you can have some fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, especially at this point of the season, right? I mean, it's kind of the time to do it now, too.
And that was it. We wanted to do it early before the game started because, obviously, like I said, everyone wants to put their best foot forward and make a good impression on the staff that's up here for the younger guys, and go from there.
We've talked a lot about this Mets bullpen, and the guys will talk about as we get into the game. There's a lot of new faces, but you're back. So what is your role, Tim, as you come in? I mean, how do you fit in here, and how do you see your role? Is it the same? Does it change with the new addition? Things like that.
I don't think it changes too much, being that what's kind of labeled as that situational lefty. My job stays really the same. You got really 3 guys down there now. With Manny, even, you got 4 guys that can close games down. That try to bridge it to those guys from the starter to those 3-4 guys and go from there.
It's not your first rodeo. You've been to spring trainings before. You've been around the block, no question. So at this point in spring training, are there things you're working on? Is it just routine as usual for you?
No, there are going to be things that, arm slot. For me, it's always been arm slot coming to spring training. You're going to pick, your spot, especially early on. You're trying to get that arm strength behind it. All of us are going to have, to work on getting that and getting time off the mound to get our off-speed pitches built into it, because you can't do it without the arm strength. You get that first, your secondary pitches come along, but at the same time, you still want to work on a couple things. There might be things that you use down here that you'll all of a sudden use later on in the year, and I've done that a couple times where, certain pitches that I'll throw in certain situations.
Ahada can't get to that one. As Bryce Harper, the phenom, gets a base hit. When you talk about arm slot, what exactly do you mean?
Well, for me, I was a low 3/4 guy. I think we kind of locked into that last year, working with Dan. Spring training just comes along, and that arm slot just keeps coming higher and higher. We want to try to make sure we maintain that low arm slot and get consistency first from there.
Can you kind of give me a demonstration? We got a little room. Like show me where you start out and where you want to be once the season starts.
Well, like I said, that low 3/4. I'll do it from the right side. Otherwise I'd be poking you in the eyeball. We don't want that happening.
Appreciate that.
But, about right here, and like I said, you might see me down here from time to time, because, I talked to Dan about it already, that, what, I'll start off lower, because I know I'm eventually going to come up. So somewhere in that, region, like I said, but the biggest thing is once the arm gets that strength behind it, you kind of lock into that spot.
Jesus Flores batting now. Is this the type of thing you're going to pitch today? So at this point of the spring, your first outing, do you go 100%? Are you looking just to kind of get through and have your arm feel okay? How do you approach this?
You don't want to quite go 100%. Like I said, that you're just going to try to work on hitting your spots, walking away, and question yourself whether or not you did what you wanted to achieve. Like I said, just hitting your spots, keeping the ball down, and forcing them to swing the bat to get on base.
How about you in the mentoring role? You are certainly a veteran. Is this a double play ball? And it goes under Turner's glove. So Harper's going to come on down to third, and he will slide in safely. We've got runners in the corners. We'll do one more with Tim Burdack, who joins us here. Digital Domain, part of the spring training opener, tied at 1. As a mentor, do guys come up to you? Will you offer some things to the guys like Robert Carson, the young lefties who are here? Tell me about your role there.
Yeah, you want to talk to as many of these young kids, being a guy who's been around for so long, there's some of the things that I've experienced, to share that with them, to kind of help them along, especially guys in their first big league camp, and let them know that, hey, you know what, you're going to have your bumps in the road, you just got to fight through them and everything, and you try talking to as many guys as you can.
He's Hulk Hogan, he's Earl Anthony, he's Tim Burdack. Guys, back to you.
The Hulk Hogan routine was outstanding, I must say. He really nailed the part. As Xavier Paul stands in, first and third and 1 out, a run home on the Rick Ankiel opposite field home run, and Paul takes outside ball 1. This was the second best sight gag of the spring in Mets camp. Look at that. I probably needed to do a few more curls, but other than that, had it down pat. The best sight gag of the spring actually happened today when Danny Herrera, all 5'6", 150 pounds of him, took John Roush's pants. Now John is 6'10" and 270, whatever. And he put his entire body into one leg of John Roush's pants, pulled them all the way up to his neck.
Oh my God!
It was a sight to behold. 2-0 to Xavier Paul. The interview with Tim Burdack, brought to you by the Xerox Business of Baseball. Xerox ready for real business. And Dylan G, after retiring the first 4, gives up the home run to Ankiel, a bounce-in single to Harper, and then a ground ball to Flores that could have gotten him out of the inning, but ball stayed down for Justin Turner, went right between the wickets, and so G finds himself in a mess here in the second. Xavier Paul last year with the Dodgers and the Pirates at 255. And he takes a strike 3-1. Next man up for the Mets, Matt Harvey. And certainly every Met fan is going to be wanting to look at one of the big pitching prospects on the horizon for the Mets.
It's interesting to me that he's up. You know, perennial starting pitcher. Usually you have someone to bridge in case Dylan G gets into a lot of trouble. Have a guy come in and get an out, and Harvey starts the inning.
It's wide, and it's ball 4, and now the bases are loaded. That's the 30th pitch for G. Normally they'll try and keep him to 40 pitches and 2 innings in the first start. Those are all the guys scheduled to throw today. Danny Herrera, who I'm sure has shed John Rauch's pants by now before getting ready for his assignment, along with the Mets' new closer, Frank Francisco, who we'll see on the mound later today.
You know, interesting, Bryce Harper, who's on third base right now, got the base hit in the inning. Boy, Ronnie and I both noticed during Kevin's interview, that kid can run. He went to third base on that error between the legs of Turner. He can fly.
Andres Blanco takes a strike. Well, there are very few things that Bryce Harper can't do on a baseball field, which is one of the reasons why he might be in the big leagues this year at age 19.
Well, he's got the perfect manager. There he is right there, and Davey Johnson, who has a lot of confidence in youth, as you recall, Ronnie. That's right.
Well, he was pretty successful with another 19-year-old in 1984.
Precisely.
Back to G. Has the play at the plate. The turn by Tolley, and they turn the 1-2-3 double play. And so G thus is able to extricate himself from further damage. The home run by Ankiel ties the game, and G, fielding his position nightly, gets himself through it. It's 1-1. Two protagonists from the clubhouse gag today. Danny Herrera in front and John Rauch behind. They're not standing, but they could be. I mean, talk about Mutt Jeff in that bullpen. Jason Bay takes a strike. Jason looking for a big year. He finished the season very strong last year, despite the down numbers, the .374 slugging percentage, the lowest of his career. But after 5 months of tinkering last year, he finally went back to pulling the ball the way he was accustomed to in his glory days in Pittsburgh and Boston, and got some results, is staying in that mode. And you know, with the fences coming in this year, I don't know whether it helps more physically or psychologically for a guy like Bay, but you have to figure that this is his year.
Well, he has just been a conundrum. I came over here with all kinds of success, and it wasn't like, you know, you're coming to New York. He had to take the place of Manny Ramirez in Boston, and he did wonderfully. And talk about that, that's a pressure cooker in Boston.
One, he was coming off a career year when he got here, but don't forget, hitting in that Boston lineup a couple of seasons ago is certainly a little different than hitting in the Mets lineup the last couple of years. I mean, you got a lot of people around you who can mash. A little protection.
But at the same time, I think, you know, we can all sit here and identify dozens of balls last year that were hittable for Jason Bay that he didn't hit.
Yeah, he was a proverbial in-between, right, Keith, where you're so concerned with your mechanics that you're not letting the talent flow. Well, that's the problem.
He changed his stance and his whole approach in spring training, working with Dave Hudgens, and then he canned that, and I think that was a setback.
Bryce Harper puts it away for the first down. And remember, he got hurt right at the end of spring training last year when he seemed to be in a nice groove and then missed the first 3 weeks of the season, came back, and he was a mess for most of the year before he finally ditched all of those changes in the last 6 weeks of the season and had some good results. You see the numbers, and the slugging percentage is clearly the most troubling piece. A guy who was a perennial 30 home run threat. Here's Lucas Duda, who takes a strike. Well, Duda looking to build off a big second half last year. All of his 10 home runs came after the trade of Carlos Beltran to the Giants. Gets it out to left field, and Roger Bernardini eases over. 2 out. But the Mets need for Duda to be for real. And, you know, half a season doesn't make that, but off what he did last year and the way he was able to keep his on-base percentage high, keep his slugging percentage high.
But he did a lot of things that you have to really like. He had great patience. He hit left-handed pitching.
Yes.
He had to replace Beltran in right field, never lost a step, in fact got better. He got off to a horrific start his first year in the big leagues, and a slow start last season. Didn't let that hurt his season. So, you know, you feel like he's got the kind of patience to get through a full major league season.
I mean, he's kind of the personality that he's very subdued, and when he came up, he was very humble, and almost now with the success, I feel that more relaxed. His real personality will come forward. He'll feel a part, and that makes you relax, and that brings results. He's got the swing.
Valentino Pascucci rolls one down to Chad Tracy. John Ladden has himself a 1-2-3 inning, and the Mets are done in the bottom of the second. Off to the third we go. Tied at 1.
Mets.
New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Citi, by Budweiser, by Toyota. Hurry in, it's Toyota's #1 for everyone sales event, Toyota. And by W.B. Mason for amazingly low prices on office supplies. Who but W.B. Mason? Well, there's Matt Harvey, 23-year-old right-hander out of Groton, Connecticut, and the University of North Carolina.
What an outstanding season last year in the minors. 13 wins, that fine ERA, the thing that you love to see. 135 innings pitched, only 47 walks, and a bunch of strikeouts. This guy has everything you want. You put him in the computer, it spits out star. Got 4 pitches, throws them for strikes, doesn't overthrow. There's Dylan G, who did a nice job over 2 innings, just touched for that Ankiel home run.
33 pitches, a run on 2 hits for G. What's interesting about Harvey is they started him out here in St. Lucie last year. He blew the league away. They moved him up to Double-A, and he experienced failure for the first time. And that's such an important thing for a young pitcher, to learn how to fight through that, and he finished very well.
As Eddie Lynch used to say, occasionally you're going to get your lunch, and you do. Everyone does. And but Wally Backman was talking about how even through those tough times, he was the same pitcher, same teammate.
Wally is going to be managing in AAA Buffalo this year. Roger Bernardina takes it low from Harvey. Tim Tuffle, who managed at Buffalo last year, the Mets' new third base coach. As the Mets have shuffled their coaching staff just a little bit. Bernardina bounced to short his first time up and takes a strike. The other thing that Harvey did the latter part of the year last year is he started working on a 2-seamer. After throwing mostly 4-seamers up in the zone, he became a guy who could sink the ball.
Well, if you sink the ball in today's game because of the pitch count, Gary, you give yourself an opportunity to get some early in the count outs.
6'4", 225 pounds, and Bernardina fouls off that 94-mile-an-hour fastball, 2-2. But when we saw Harvey the other day in an intra-squad game, he looked good but not great. He had trouble commanding his fastball that day.
And talking to Terry Collins before the game today, that's what he wanted to look at from Harvey. He wanted to see that he had command of his fastball in the strike zone.
You know, in Matt Harvey's perfect world, he makes this team out of spring training. But realistically, he's going to begin the year probably in Double-A, maybe get a promotion to Triple-A if he starts well, and possibly be in the big leagues by the end of the season. Here's a 3-2 to Bernardina, and it's fouled down the left side. But if you're Matt Harvey and you're out there for your first exhibition game, do you understand that in terms of not trying to be overly impressive, but trying to get yourself ready for your season and not thinking, gosh, I have to throw it that much harder to impress everybody so I can make it to the big leagues?
Well, I think, Gary, there's an innocence to when you first start in professional ball.
Too high, ball 4, and Bernardina's up.
And that innocence translates to what you've done your entire life. Every time you've had a tryout, every time you've tried to make a team, you've made that team. And I think guys like Harvey can only think that way. They think they come to the ballpark, they come here in spring training, and they're thinking to themselves, you know what, I don't want any more seasoning in Double-A. I want to show what I can do so that when the team, if they go into a skid, if they need a pitcher, they saw what I did in spring training and think I'm ready.
There's Steve Lombardozzi. And Bernardina takes off. Tolley's throw right on the money, and he got him. Well, Josh Tolley threw so well the second half of last year and picks up where he left off, gunning down Bernardina.
I thought Bernardina beat this throw, but it's still a fine throw. He did beat it, but still a good throw by Tolley. And Bernardina, very speedy. Stole 14 bases last year. Nice tag by Tejada, quick tag.
So 1 out and nobody on. 1-0 to Lombardozzi, who flied to left his first time. There's the curveball from Harvey for a strike.
There's a nice little 12-6 curve right there in the outside corner. Nice pitch.
That's a hard curveball.
That's the first breaking ball he's thrown.
Now, this is why he is considered to be so close to Major League ready, because he's not just a guy who's going to throw fastballs and blow you away. He's got a very well-developed curveball.
He looks very composed on the mound, and I don't care. He's nervous. He's out here for the first time, and you got to be nervous.
Now the curve, and it's bounced out to second. Murphy into play, throws out Lombardozzi, 2 away. Well, we were talking about Matt Harvey and his approach to spring training. What are his expectations?
I can't come down here with too much pressure and trying to do everything that I can't do. I just have to do the same thing I normally do and come out and field ground balls and do everything I can in my bullpens to throw strikes and get better, and whatever happens happens.
Great maturity about him for a 23-year-old, isn't there?
Yes.
2 out. Here's Martian, and he takes a fastball for a strike. And there's that sinker. Tian struck out his first time up against Dylan G.
Where's Groton, Connecticut, Gary? Is it on the water?
Yeah, Mystic, that area.
To the Mystic. Isn't that where the submarine pens are? The U.S. Navy?
Electric boat. Yep. Matt Harvey played for his dad at Fitch High School in Groton, and he blows away Tian, and that retires the side. So Matt Harvey with an impressive first inning of work. Mets and Nats tied at 1. Follow the Mets with MLB.com at @BAT12 for your iPhone, iPad, or Android. Get spring training scores, stats, highlights, live audio, and more. Text @BAT to 31826 or visit Mets.com for details.
Leading off for the Mets, catcher, number 30, Josh Holding.
Well, I believe that your place as the biggest 17 in town might have been usurped this winter.
It's at 17 in baseball. It carries over to other sports. Trust me.
You mean the Magic? Josh totally takes a fastball from John Lennon for a strike.
I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it. Have you, Gary, with the Linsanity? I have not. I mean, it's just New York was crazy this winter.
Well, just in terms of a guy coming from absolutely nowhere to create as large a sensation as he did in a short period of time, I don't think there's ever been anything in any sport to rival that.
It's been amazing. And the points scored, and you look at the double digits and assists every night he plays. You know, he dishes the ball off as well as scores.
You know, totally fouls them off. People discount those Ivy League guys at their peril.
That's you know, it's been interesting though is that all of the top echelon guards now, to see Craig Stamen in the bullpen, are trying to make their mark against him. Rondo had an amazing game yesterday, and of course Williams for the Nets had an amazing game in the Garden.
Coley can't hold the swing, and he's down on strikes, 1 away. Well, it's different when you have a target on your back.
That's right.
Let's check in with Kevin.
You guys talking about all that Ivy League hoops. I'm talking about the pride of Wichita right now. Mike Pelfrey is here. Wichita Heights doing very well in hoops this year. It's a little removed from when you were there, but I know you have some pride there. You know, Mike, you talked to me this past week about regaining your sinker, regaining the feel for that sinker. Through a couple innings yesterday, and I know you were pleased. Why were you so pleased?
I was pleased with the movement on the sinker. The sinker's been pretty good. That's a pitch in the off season that I went in. I felt last year that really didn't have a lot of movement. I didn't have the same amount of depth that I wanted, and I worked with arm angles, grips, everything, and ended up finding a grip that I was pretty comfortable with, and I'm pretty pleased with the progress it's made.
We found a baseball. So can you explain to us and show us what the grip is that you like?
Yeah. Of course, I used to be right here, and then I just moved it up farther. I think it's a lot easier for me to stay on top of it. And last thing that comes off is that finger, and it has that good sink. So it's been pretty good. And I know that a lot of people say that you usually don't get your sinker to the middle of March, and I have it now, so it's pretty good.
You just showed how you moved up on the baseball. Is that just experimentation? Did you just sit and throw 50 sinkers one day until it felt right?
I did. I tried everything, and it just kind of took a while in off season. And I used to be on the seams. Now I'm kind of inside the seams and a little farther up. So it took a lot. I even messed with my arm, slide my arm down a little bit, and I found something that works.
Is that something that this off season you just thought about exclusively after the season? And you said, hey, if I got to go in my backyard and just keep throwing until it feels right, how did you actually approach that?
Well,
as Ruben Tejada knocks one through, he's got a base hit.
Well, I knew that I needed to get it back, and so from the first day, when you come back and you kind of try to find your arm slot, I started messing around with grips, and usually I think when I come back, I think my arm's a little lower, and I was having some sink. I think as my arm got stronger, I kind of moved back up slowly, and I just kept tinkering with different grips, and I found one, and my buddy that was actually assistant coach at Wichita State was the one that catch me. He goes, hey, that's moving pretty good, and so I kept throwing it and kept throwing it and it kept moving, and I said, well, this is it, man.
So, Mike, you've also done a couple other things. Late last year, you scrapped the splitter. You now throw a circle change as well, right?
Yes, and I've been pretty. That's actually gone pretty well too.
Why did you switch?
That was the thing that Dan Worthen and I we talked about, and I think that last year the splitter lost a lot of its effectiveness, and I don't know, maybe it was so good in 2010, maybe because it wasn't on the scouting report, but it was on last year, and it wasn't as effective. So I went back to the circle change as a pitch that I threw in college, and it worked great, and it's been good so far.
As Lannon looks at Tejada, Andres Torres up. Torres got on, stole, and scored his first time up. We're talking with Mike Pelfrey. Mike, is it hard? You were obviously a big-time prospect, drafted high by the New York Mets. Is it hard to reinvent yourself almost? Because that's what it sounds like you've done at this point in your career.
I don't really necessarily look at
tooling, maybe.
I kind of think of more like developing, because I really think that when I came up, I had that good sinker, and I don't know if I had much besides that. So I've known that at this level you need more than one pitch, and I'm trying to add those, and it's not always the easiest thing to do when you're doing it at this level, but I'm trying to make the most of it.
Is it fair to say that at this point, I know it's early, you got a lot of spring to go, but just with what you're saying about the sinker, it seems like the change you're kind of comfortable with. Is it fair to say that you might be the most comfortable that you've been in a spring training to this point?
I feel like it. Like I said, that sinker is a big part of my game, and have it moving like that and sinking like that is pretty encouraging. So I'm excited to get out there on Thursday.
Mike, we'll see you on Thursday on SNY. Good luck then, and thanks for the time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mike Pelfrey, guys. Mets have something going with Daniel Murphy at the plate. Let's go back to you.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks, Mike. And there's a lot to digest there with Mike, Ronnie, and I thought it was fascinating. He was showing me the other day about moving his grip on the sinker, and you always assume when a guy throws a sinker, he's on the narrowest part of the seams, right? But he's moved forward, so his fingers are actually on the white of the ball rather than the seams. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, and I think what he has such big hands, what he's trying to get is when he releases the baseball, that the last thing it touches is that seam more in the meat of his hand, and I think that's why he's getting a little more spin on the ball.
Daniel Murphy with two aboard. Andres Torres on for the second time, and the curveball from Lannon in for a strike.
Kevin and both Pelfrey trying to find a word, retool, refine. I think it's simply the phrase back to basics, back to what made him successful, and that is sinking the baseball, keeping it in the ballpark, and going back to that changeup he had in college.
This is a huge year in Mike's career. He had that great start in 2010, and he mentioned it. The splitter was a huge part of that. Guys were not used to seeing that from him, but then they adjusted the second half of 2010, and really from the middle of that year on, it's been hard for him to figure out what his proper repertoire is, and I found it fascinating that he's scrapped the splitter altogether and gone back to the circle change.
There's very few pitchers.
Murphy lashes one to left, but Bernardina's right in front of it for the second out.
There's very few pitchers in the history of the game that have the ability to control the pitches that Mike was going to the game with. Think about it. He had a four-seamer, two-seamer, slider, curveball, split finger, changeup, and he's trying to get them all over the plate. Impossible. Impossible.
Here's Justin Turner, who flied to right his first time up. John Lannon trying to get through a third inning of work for the Nats, up to 37 pitches now, as he puts in his opening bid for the Nats' fifth starter job. And Turner takes low 1-0. These are the situations that Turner reveled in last year. He had 350 with runners in scoring position last season. And when the Mets were at their best, it's when Turner was playing well.
He drove in 50 runs last year in 117 ball games. You know, that's around 70 on a year, and a guy that's hitting, you know, low in the order.
Well, he had 435 at bats last year, and in a perfect world for the Mets, he won't get anything close to that this season. So the question is, how effective can Justin be playing once or twice a week?
I think he can be effective because I think his fundamentals are sound, Keith. He's a guy that will hit the ball the other way, and he's a good breaking ball hitter also.
Well, they've got him playing a little bit of first base, too. They've got him going to work him over at first. In more positions you can play, he's a guy that can play all three spots on the infield. That's a positive.
Well, the Mets certainly will be well stocked with backup infielders this year with Turner and Ronnie Cedeno. That's a nice duo behind your starting four on the infield. Good change up by Landon, and it's 2-1.
Well, you have to have a guy like Cedeno because, you know, worst case scenario, and again, you see this good changeup that eludes Turner, dives down and away from Landon. You know, just in case Tejada doesn't get off to the start that you think he's going to.
It gives you the option, too, with Tejada, where you can spell him every now and again.
Well, the key to all of it, of course, is Daniel Murphy. I mean, Murphy's going to be out there playing second base every day. And, you know, even if Ike Davis needs a day off or two, he's not moving over to first, and neither is Lucas Duda. They're going to stay where they are as they try and develop more proficiency at those positions.
You can even see it in the lineup today. David Wright is not in the lineup. Turner playing, but he's having an effect on the lineup because he wants all those people to be in their place. Torres is leading off. Murphy's sitting second. Ike in the fourth spot. Bay. You know, Turner wouldn't necessarily usually hit third if he was playing for David.
Well, strictly from a defensive standpoint, I don't think that Terry Collins wants to clutter their minds. He wants Murphy to focus solely on second base, doing what he needs to do defensively, and Duda in right field. It's a new position for Duda, too. He played a little bit of right field last year. You know, really Duda's a first baseman, and really the best position for Murphy is really third base.
Right. But you play guys sometimes where you have to, and in Murphy's case, you had to find a place for his bat in the lineup. Ground ball to second, and Lombardozzi's got it, and that retires the side. So the Mets get a couple of hits and leave two. About time for an evening snack. On the grill, 1-1 after 3. hasn't taken the mound in a game against Major League competition since the middle of the 2010 season. And tomorrow, Johan Santana takes the mound for the first time. And I have to believe that there's some butterflies going through that stomach. As great a professional as he is and as much success as he's had, when he faces the St. Louis Cardinals here tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be a little bit of a stomach-churning experience for Mr. Santana.
Well, he had butterflies when he was going to pitch his first batting practice here for the Mets, and was telling the hitter, make sure you take the first pitch. I don't want anyone lining that first pitch. But, yeah, he's certainly, you know, when you're not feeling good in spring training, I've been there many times, you kind of hide from people. You kind of want to stay away. And when you're feeling good, you're bouncing around and full of life and full of energy and jokes. And that's how he's been all spring training. So Mets hoping that, you know, on opening day when they face the Braves, at 57 will be on that mound.
Chad Tracy lines one to center, and Torres is there. One away. Well, we'll have that game for you tomorrow right here on SNY. 1 o'clock start. Mets and Cardinals with Santana pitching. And every time he has thrown a side session or a live batting practice, it has drawn a crowd. I mean, everybody in the organization comes to whatever field he's throwing on. Every media member, all his teammates, as many as can fit there, because everybody needs to know whether number 57 is going to be ready, and it has such a huge impact, a trickle-down effect on the rest of the ball club.
And management. I mean, they may have to go. If he can't go answer the bell in April, they may have to go out and find a 5th starter,
or might have to rush a young starter.
I mean, right now, if the Mets need an extra starter, what they have in camp is really not all that substantial. They've got a kid named Jeremy Hefner, who's not pitched in the major leagues before. They've got a retread like a Garrett Olson. They've got Miguel Batista, who's 41 years old.
Schwinden, who pitched at the end of last season.
Schwinden. So, you know, the options aren't great. And in a perfect world, the Mets don't want to have to go out and get a starter, because there might be other pieces that they need to look for. They might need to look for a left-handed bat off the bench. They might need to look for a backup catcher. There are other pieces that they might need to be in the market for at the end of spring training. They certainly don't want to have to be in the market for a starting pitcher.
Well, we might not all believe in trickle-down economics, but we certainly believe in trickle-down Santana.
Ball 4, and Ankiel, who homered his first time up, is on with a walk. Second one given up by Matt Harvey. Well, Harvey is part of the next wave of pitchers in this Mets organization. Matt was a first-round draft pick, made his professional debut last summer after being drafted in 2010. You got Jeurys Familia, who is maybe closer to the big leagues than Harvey, if only because Familia might get his grounding in the big leagues as a relief pitcher. And then you've got Zach Wheeler, whom the Mets got in the Carlos Beltran deal last year. And don't forget about Henry Mejia. Yeah. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery and should be ready to pitch by May.
Well, Wheeler had a jaw-opening session today on the side and in batting practice, and Familia, I introduced myself today. I didn't realize that he was that big and strong. A lot of these younger pitchers, younger players, you go away for the off season and they're so young, you come back and they've grown an inch or two.
Well, not Danny Herrera.
No.
Well, he's up in the bullpen.
Thanks a lot, Webby.
Bryce Harper singled to center his first time up. And Bryce Harper, you talk about guys who've grown. Bryce Harper's grown 1.5 inches in the last year. He's now 6'3.5" and about 235. He can run like the wind. He's got a powerful right arm, and by the way, he can hit a little bit too.
Hit 17 home runs last year. A-ball, double-A. Struggled a little bit in double-A. He wore out single-A.
But much like Matt Harvey last year, he struggled early in double-A, but by the end of the season had caught up.
Would you say, Keith, he had 17 bombs?
17 bombs, 14 in A-ball and 3 in double-A. You know, Gary, I found the biggest jump and the most difficult jump in classifications, and only speaking for myself, was the jump from single-A to double-A. Because you've got a lot of guys that are hanging on. First time you start seeing a slider, guys that can throw change-ups behind the count. I had a real tough time in double-A.
You know, I thought the biggest for me as a pitcher was double-A to triple-A, because triple-A had all these guys that were 27 to 32, old guys trying to get back in the major leagues. and they would not swing at pitches outside of the strike zone.
Keith, you notice how he didn't talk about the jump from single A to double A? He never played the single A.
That's right. That's true.
Well, that's those Ivy Leaguers.
Well, when you go to the minor leagues when you're 32, you know, they say, you know, we're going to get him right to double A.
2-2 to Harper with Ankiel at first. 1-1 game in the fourth. You know, looking at Harvey make the move to first base, did you see yesterday when Mike Pelfrey threw his stint in the inter-squad game? He pitched the entire 2 innings out of the stretch because he's trying to get better at holding runners. The curveball misses. Tough play for Tolle, but Ankiel is able to steal the base. Well, he made that closer than you'd expect, having to go down in the dirt to get that. Ankiel, who stole 10 last year, is on second.
Well, good pitch to steal on. Curveball in the dirt.
It's interesting when the hitter ducks down like that. You don't have to, right? You can stay right in that batter's box, make it even more difficult for the catcher.
Every time Ankiel plays against the Mets, he does something, doesn't he?
Well, he's on a minor league deal this spring, and you know the Mets had a chance to sign him, but opted not to. But there's certainly been talk that if Ankiel doesn't make this Nationals team, that the Mets might be interested at the end of the spring. It's an interesting situation they have in that Washington outfield, and it all is dependent on whether Bryce Harper makes the team. If Harper makes the team, Jason Worth moves over to center field, and there's no room for Ankiel or Bernardina, at least in the starting lineup. But if Bryce Harper starts the year in the minors, then Worth plays right, and one of those two guys, Ankiel or Bernardina, will play center. One thing's for sure, as Harper draws a walk, Harper will be here before long, and Worth is going to be there for another 6 years. Dan Worth will head out for a conversation with Harvey, who's now walked 3 of the 6 batters to face him.
Well, obviously, this is the thing that Terry Collins didn't want to see. He wanted to see Matt have good command of his fastball. He's been erratic in the strike zone. And, you know, you were talking about Bryce Harper, who probably is going to be here with the Nationals, maybe more at the center. If Matt Harvey is where he wants to be very quickly, he'll be spending most of his career trying to get Bryce Harper out.
Well, Matt Harvey taken 7th in the same draft where Harper went #1 a couple of years ago.
Well, it's interesting that Kay Whitson, that's not Eddie Whitson's son, is it? Drafted by San Diego.
How about DeShields?
Yeah, that is.
There's Frank Francisco, who will get the first crack this year at being the Mets closer alongside Danny Herrera in the Mets bullpen. Here's Jesus Flores, who reached on an error his first time, and that curveball missing outside for ball 1.
Mr. Harvey getting a little bit in trouble here, losing a little bit of his command.
And also, I think, Keith, early in spring training, and I know that, you know, as a young man, you want to throw shutout innings, but command of the fastball is what you got to get early in spring training. In and out, keeping the ball down.
And that one just missed. 2-0. Well, he's already up to 31 pitches now in his second inning of work, and I wonder whether this might be his last batter.
He needs a pitcher's best friend here, a little double play.
Well, he's been working on that 2-seamer. It's the best time to throw it. Get yourself a ground ball.
There's a new bench coach right there, Bob Guerin. That was on the left of your screen with Dan Warthen. There he is right there.
Former Oakland skipper. Coming over to sit beside Terry Collins and be of counsel. That's a new first base coach as well. Tom Goodwin takes over that job. A new bullpen coach and Ricky Bonas. New third base coach and Tim Tuffle. Join the holdovers. Dave Hudgens, the hitting coach. Dan Warthen, the pitching coach.
Cool little 62 degrees here. The temperature's dropped here.
You guys had a nice winter here, though, right?
It was beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. And actually, it was a good winter up north.
Yeah, you're right.
I understand for you guys.
Certainly, we lacked for snow. Pick-off try, and Ankiel back easily. We had some days here last week in the mid-80s. 4 or 5 days ago. It was lovely. Rained a little bit yesterday, cooled down. But it was a gorgeous day today. Temperature right around 70 degrees. 2-1 to Flores, the former Met farmhand, who will back up Wilson Ramos this year. inside. He's hit by the pitch. And now the bases are loaded. So Harvey's control getting away from a couple of walks, and now a hit by pitch.
Got him on his right under his wrist or on his forearm.
Trainer will make sure that Flores is okay. Talking about Flores backing up Wilson Ramos. What a harrowing experience for the young Washington catcher this winter. Ramos.
51 hours. Kidnapped.
Held for ransom. And see, you can only imagine what that experience is.
I can't.
Fortunately, released unharmed and back with the Nats and hoping to put that behind him. But, you know, psychologically, that kind of thing, you wonder the kind of impact it has on anybody. Bases loaded and one out. Here's Xavier Paul. And he takes a fastball for a strike. Paul walked his first time up. Ankiel at third, Harper at second, and Flores the runner at first. 1-1 game in the fourth. The Nationals are actually playing their third spring training game. They played 2 games with the Astros and lost them both. While the Mets are playing their first game today after a trio of intra-squad games the last 3 days. And a curveball. This is low, and it's 1-1. A slower curve there for Harvey.
Well, he's backed off his fastball a little bit too, and he's trying to find his rhythm. Put down number 1. You're going to hit it somewhere. You got 8 gloves out there.
He's thrown more balls than strikes so far. 18 balls, 17 strikes in his inning and a third. Double play ball right at Murphy. And Tejada with the turn, and that's how you get yourself out of the inning. So Harvey extricates himself. Mets turn the 4-6-3 double play and keep the game tied. Weekdays at 6, Chris Carlin and Adam Shine bring you live reports on the Mets and Yankees straight from camp. Plus, get a complete breakdown of the Big East tournament on Loudmouth, part of the New York Sports Local. Weekdays at 6 on SNY. Well, first spring training game, and you guys were mid-season for.
You think?
I think so. What'd you do all winter?
What did I do?
Yeah, what did you do?
I read all 7 of the Harry Potter books. That was my winter reading. I had a great time with it.
Well, you know, J.K. Rowling's writing an adult book
That's
now.
right.
Not like adult, but, you know, not for kids.
I enjoyed them, I must say.
They're very entertaining. Have you watched the movies?
Yes, I have.
I've not watched any of the movies.
I have not either. I have not or read the books.
Really?
Yes.
Ball on a strike. How have you avoided that?
I don't know how I avoided it, but
did your boys read the books?
Boys read all the books and saw the movies numerous times.
Greg Stammen on the mound for Washington, spent most of last year in the minors, and Ike Davis pulls himself a base hit. So the Mets get the leadoff man on in the fourth. Speaking of leadoff men, Kevin Burkhardt standing by with Andres Torres.
I guess later on I'm going to have to get you caught up on Voldemort, but for now it is the newest Met. Andres Torres is here, and Andres, feeling for you. You know, first spring game, you're in Florida, not Arizona, so that new teammates. Well, what do you feel like tonight?
I feel great. I just try to get on base. You know, it was fun today. I'm excited for the first game, especially with the Mets, and like I said, I feel pretty good. Just try to work pitches, get on base, and try to run scores.
Is there any nerves for you as Josh Satin runs at first base with Bay up at the plate? Any nerves, even though it's spring training, just coming to a new team, trying to show what you can do?
No, be honest. I'm relaxed, to be honest. I've been preparing my whole off season, and I feel great. I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to, you know, to keep playing.
You got a little play at the plate there. You know, Ankiel always has the arm. What'd you think about that play at the plate?
Yeah, he got a great arm. You know, I should take a better secondary at second, but at least, you know, I get safe. You know, I catcher was in the middle, and I just try to, you know, slide, and we get the run. That's the most important thing.
You know, you are going to be the leadoff guy for this team, and you're replacing a guy that had tons of energy. You also play the same way, you know, energy and spirit. Do you feel that need, though, to go out and just always be the Energizer Bunny to kind of have guys feed off that, or is it more just kind of act yourself?
That's how I play, to be honest with you. This year I want to be aggressive on the bases. I want to, you know, make things happen. I put pressure, and that's my game. You know, get on base, steal bases, and that's the way I play. I play hard and make things happen.
How aggressive can you be stealing bases? Just how aggressive can you get?
I'm going to steal a lot of bases this year. I prepared that. I work a lot of my speed, and I want to get aggressive, especially here. You know, start working, you know, early in spring training. I think it's going to help me a lot.
Bay goes down on strikes. We talked to Andres Torres, the new Mets center fielder. How about defensively, Andres? Is there an adjustment period when you're working with a couple new guys in the outfield, or is playing center field the same here, San Francisco, or anywhere else?
I think it's the same. I think it's the same, to be honest with you. I just try to play, you know, see where the guys, you know, if it's a power hitter, a little more the pull side, but I try to stay the same. You know, it's the same thing. Defense is a big part of my game, too. I try to, you know, try to cut everything out there just to make plays, but I always play hard.
You toiled all your life to get to get the opportunity that everyone dreams of, and in 09 you were a huge part of the Giants World Series run. To get that opportunity at that stage of your career and to run with it, what did that feel?
Oh, that's a great feeling, to be honest with you. You know, in 2010, like you said, you know, it was a big run, and we won the World Series. It was fun, and right now that's what I try to, you know, this year I feel healthy. I just gonna try to play relax and have fun out there.
It's great to see you. Thanks for the time, and good luck this spring.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, just saw a little Andres Torres today, huh? Get on with the walk, steal, score runs, beautiful things, and Duda is hits. Let's go back up to you.
Well, he got hit on his broad back, and it doesn't seem to be any the worse for it. So Stammen had one get away, and Duda's aboard.
Nope. Kind of interesting right here. I think that ball got away. It's spring training. I don't think that he was intentionally hit.
Maybe he wasn't, but I'll tell you one thing. When you're taught as a pitcher, where do you hit a guy when you're trying to hit him? You hit him between the numbers, and that hit him right between the 2 and the 1.
Adam Lowen comes in to run for Duda, whose day has come to an end, not because he was hit by the pitch, but because he was due to come out, as Davis did before him. So Satin and Lowen, the 2 pinch runners. Fascinating hearing Kevin talk to Andres Torres, and of course there's such an interesting backstory on Torres with a movie coming out later this month, a documentary called Gigante, talking about his battles with ADHD. I mean, Torres is 34 years old, and his career really didn't take off until well into his 30s because of his battles with ADHD, and it wasn't until he got on the proper medication, which he still adjusts to this day.
Yeah.
And, you know, for all the kids out there that battle with that condition, it's going to be really inspiring to see that movie when it comes out later this month. Here's Val Pascucci, of course, talking about attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, which plagues so many kids these days.
Yes.
And, you know, talking to Andres about it, it's something he's had since he was a little kid, but nobody diagnosed it. Not until he was well into adulthood.
By the way, I was shocked that Kevin mentioned Voldemort by his real name.
The one who should not be named?
Yeah.
Well, as you see Frank Francisco warming up. I think Andres had his first New York moment, brush with the New York kind of fanatic. I was sitting there at the pool and I was working underneath the umbrella, and he was out there with his son Andres, and ended up getting in the hot tub with about 4 or 5 different folks.
Scucci hits one out to center field, hit well. Back goes Ankiel near the wall and has just enough room to track it down. Well, it's 408 to center field at Citi Field, 410 the old Shea Stadium dimensions here. I think if it was 408, Scucci might have had himself a bomb.
Ankiel, such a fine outfielder. Catches that ball with ease.
An unusually timed game here, 6:10. You don't see these games this time in the daytime. That usually falls over the wall.
Well, Pascucci has such raw power. 234 lifetime minor league home runs. Hit one for the Mets late last season. And he almost got it. So 2 out of 2 on. Now Josh Tolley, who struck out his first time up.
I was saying that Andres is in the hot tub, and I was close enough to be able to hear the conversation. And the guys that were in there were Met fans. They're like, "You're Andres Torres, right? What are you going to hit this year? Are you going to bat leadoff? How many bases are you going to steal? I'm telling you, you better catch the ball better in center field than Pagan did last year." And so he got out of the hot tub and left.
Can you blame him?
No.
Nice big hop for Lombardozzi, and he throws out Tolley to end the inning. Let's get a couple of hits in strand 2. And that keeps it a 1-1 game after 4. The 2012 Big East Conference Tournament is about to tip off. Join Gary Apple, Tariq Turner, Donnie Marshall, and Tim Welsh as they break down the brackets with predictions, exclusive interviews, and analysis on the Big East Tournament Preview Show presented by Citi tonight at 10 p.m. only on SNY. Changes for the Mets. Josh Satin, who pinch ran, stays in at first. Vinny Rotino will be at third base. Whitestone's Mike Baxter goes to left field. Kirk Neuenhuis is in center, and Adam Lowen is in right. Frank Francisco will be the Mets closer this year. He pitches the 5th inning, and a foul ball off the bat of Andres Blanco for strike 1. There's Kirk Neuenhuis in center field, and there's Adam Lowen playing right. Those are 2 big guys. Right. Frank Francisco last year in Toronto closed for half the season.
See his numbers there: 17 saves and 21 opportunities, 1-4 record. Good ERA. Does not walk anybody. Only 18 last season with 53 strikeouts.
Started out his career in Texas and gets one over for a strike. Throw fastball, but his big pitch is a split.
He really spots that fastball to get to his breaking pitches. He's got a slow curve that occasionally throw for a strike, but that split finger is the pitch that he puts hitters away with.
I'm fascinated as he throws that curveball low, watching Frank Francisco walk around the clubhouse, because he walks exactly like Armando Benitez. Got about the same size. He says Armando's a good friend of his, and you just watch him. He's got that same swagger to him that Armando had.
That full-chested kind of walk, right?
Line to center, and on comes Neuenhuis to make the diving catch. Well, I asked Terry Collins the other day, I said, at his size, can Kirk Neuenhuis be a big league center fielder? And boy, every time we see him, he shows that he can be.
Well, his manager through 3 different stops has been Tim Tuffle, and Tim Tuffle says, you know what? He's a big-bodied guy, so you look at him, you don't think that he can play center field, but he always seems to take the correct angle. He always seems to know when to try to take a chance like he did right there. He's been compared a little bit to the center fielder that Terry Collins had for many years.
Jim Edmonds, who he had out in Anaheim. Here's Roger Bernardino. I mean, that would be high praise. Edmonds, one of the best center fielders of his generation. But it's an interesting situation with the Mets outfield this year, because Scott Hairston right now is out with an oblique injury that appears to be fairly serious. It's going to cost him at least a couple of weeks, and it's the same injury that ended his season last year. And you look on the roster right now, and without Hairston, the Mets really don't have a backup center fielder behind Andres Torres. So even though the Mets would prefer to have Neuenhuis start the year in the minors after he missed the last 2 months of last season with a shoulder injury, they might have no choice but to keep Kirk around, only to have a backup center fielder. Line into right and a base hit for Bernardino. So he's aboard for the second time.
Yeah, he had to have surgery to repair that shoulder. It's his non-throwing shoulder. He had heard it, he thought originally, but Tim Tuffle said he made an outstanding catch a couple of days later that really he thought was the one that really compounded the injury.
Because you look at the other outfielders at camp, Baxter's not really a center fielder. Lowen is not a center fielder. You'd hate to have to move Jason Bay over to play center field in a backup role. You're going to get a pinch runner now as Bernardino is going to come out of the game. And Yuri Perez will run for him.
That's why I thought that Ankiel, who's made a mark on this game already, was going to be kind of a natural fit, but you don't know how that kind of negotiating process goes when you're trying to acquire a player for a minor league or a major league deal.
Well, and again, we were talking about the fact that the Mets might be interested in looking at what's available at the end of spring training, and you know, Ankiel might be a guy. But there's also going to be another class of player available at the end of this spring training. A new rule in the collective bargaining agreement. A player who has major league experience, a 6-year free agent, who signs a minor league deal. If a team wants to send him to the minors at the end of spring training, they have to give him $100,000. Wow. So players in that situation, like an Ankiel, might be released rather than sent to the minors. Not necessarily talking about Ankiel specifically, but there are about 30 to 40 players in that. The Mets have one in camp in Miguel Batista, who's in on a minor league deal, but they'd have to give an extra $100,000 to send him down at the end of spring training. So it might create more opportunities for major league veteran players to be available to the Mets or to other teams at the end of the spring.
Going to work that into our deal?
Looks like my parents have waited 25 years.
Hey, nobody's sending you to the minors now. 1-1 to Lombardozzi as Perez takes off, and Lombardozzi shoots it right through the vacated hole. Davey Johnson playing hit and run. Perez heads for third. Baxter's thrown out in time. Throw down to second, and taking the extra base is Lombardozzi. Successful hit and run, compounded, and it's second and third with one out.
Well, ill-advised throw here by Baxter. Hit and run right there. You got to know your runners, and good hustle on the backside by Lombardozzi. Perez here flying around the bases. The throw should have gone into second base. Nice hustle by Lombardozzi. Good base runner.
It's in the genes. That's the way his dad
That's
played.
right. Same way.
So in a 1-1 game, two in scoring position with one out, and Martin, who has struck out twice, once against G and once against Harvey. Harvey didn't allow a hit in his 2 innings. He walked 3 and hit a batter, but emerged unscathed. And this one's lifted to left. That'll get the run in as Perez tags at third. Baxter chasing it all the way to the warning track. And Perez trots in and gives the Nats a 2-1 lead on the sacrifice fly by Martin. So the Nats execute perfectly on the hit and run, and then Tien getting the run in on the first pitch. So 2 out. Lombardozzi held at second, and here's Chad Tracy, who's grounded out and lined to center. Tracy playing first base. That'll be Adam LaRoche's domain this year. LaRoche coming back from most of the season on the shelf last year. But what's interesting about that for Washington is it pushes Mike Morse back into left field. And if you recall last year, Morse, who had a great spring training, got off to a horrible start. But then when LaRoche got hurt and they moved Morse to first base, Morse had a career year.
You know, Morse originally a shortstop, so much more comfortable in the infield, and you could see it in his hitting.
But David Johnson says Morse will not play any first base this spring. He has to readjust to play in the outfield because LaRoche is getting $8 million this year. He's going to play.
Oh, the economics of the game.
And also Adam LaRoche at his best. He is a slick fielding first baseman who can hit 30 home runs.
Yeah, and they need a left-hander in that lineup.
You're right.
I mean, if all the parts fit for the Nationals this year, and Morse has another good year, and Worth bounces back and has a year more in tune with what he did in his Philly days, and Harper comes up and produces, and you got Ian Desmond, who's an emerging player. And
defense, middle of the infield is the only thing that could be their Achilles heel.
Well, Desmond has throwing problems, makes a lot of errors at short. And Espinoza, you know, they're both hard-nosed players. They love them. They both come to play hard. But defensively, you got to be. I agree. I believe in the old adage that you got to be strong up the middle to win, which obviously means catcher, center field, and your middle infield.
And the Mets are going to be tested in that same vein.
No question about it. And that's why so much hinges on Torres and Tejada, because, you know, Murphy and Tolley are guys who are still works in progress at the other two positions. Murph makes that play, throws out Tracy to end the inning. Nats take the lead, and it's 2-1 halfway through.
You know.
Home fifth inning at Digital Domain Park in the Mets spring training opener. 2-1 Washington. Craig Stammen starts his second inning of relief. Ruben Tejada had a base hit to center his first time up, and he takes a strike. Changes for the Nats. Tyler Moore takes over at first base. Jared Hoffpower is now playing second. That is young Mr. Rivero at third base. Lashed the other way, and Tejada's 2 for 2. Nicely done on the breaking ball. Tejada taking it to right field. And the Mets have the leadoff man on in the 5th. That's Yuri Perez in left field. Brett Carroll, the former Marlin, now in center.
Number 72, Kirk Neuenhuis.
Here's Kirk Neuenhuis, who took over in center field for the Mets. We're going to pinch runner now for Tejada, Ronnie Cedeno, who will be Tejada's backup at shortstop this year. Cedeno, the well-traveled middle infielder, who will be a defensive boon off the bench for the Mets.
Oh, these spring training games.
Didn't catch you by surprise, did it?
No, no. It's just a lot of work.
Well, you've had 5 months off.
Oh, this is good practice.
What are you practicing for?
What happened to your monitor?
Looks like a test pattern. Neuenhuis takes it wide. Kirk Neuenhuis limited to 53 games at Buffalo last year. Hit .298 with 6 home runs. And then that shoulder injury cost him the rest of the season. Bouncing ball, could be 2. Blanco to Hoffpower, and on to first. Not in time. Neuenhuis beat it out. Not a strong throw by Hoffpower. And Neuenhuis able to take advantage.
No. Play the long hop here. There's situations where you might want to try to, if you're a shortstop, to come get it a little quicker.
And take it yourself?
Well, get the short hop. He played back the long hop. I always feel you've got to turn double play. That's a double play. You've got to be able to turn defensively. You must turn too.
Now Jordani Valdespin will bat for Daniel Murphy. Valdespin, who we saw a lot of in spring training last year, might be as physically talented as any infielder the Mets have. He had a reputation for being a hard case early in his minor league career, but by all accounts had a season of maturity last year as he moved up the Mets ladder.
Well, he opened my eye last spring, Gary. I mean, he swings a good bat. He can run. I think he's got a chance to be a good player.
Well, you'll remember last spring when the Mets had a wide open competition at second base. The most talented player they had in that battle with, remember, it was Brad Emis and Justin Turner and all these other guys. Valdespin was the most talented player without question.
Most natural second baseman.
There goes Neuenhuis, hit out to center field, and there is Brett Carroll to make the play as Neuenhuis heads back to first. So there are 2 out. Of course, there's another middle infielder whom the Mets are hoping will be able to stay healthy, and he's already had one issue to deal with this spring, and that's their former first-round draft pick, Reese Havens.
He's got back issues.
Well, every time Havens goes on the field, he plays like he's a future major leaguer, but he just hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Well, the Mets have had 2 players like that, one no longer with the team, Fernando Martinez and Reese Havens, guys with so much potential and so much talent that have not been able to show what they can do.
Now here's Vinny Rotino batting for the first time. Rotino, former Milwaukee Brewer, who can play a bunch of different places, including catcher, which makes him that much more valuable.
Especially in the National League.
But you can put him in the outfield. You can play him at the corners on the infield. And he has caught 1 big league game so far. But that's been his primary position in the minor leagues, has been catcher. Danny Herrera and Mike Nickius in conversation down in the Mets bullpen. And a fastball strike to Rotino. Perry up in the bullpen for the Nats. And that's a nice curveball from Stammen, and it's 0-2.
Ryan Perry, for a lot of you Met fans, probably remember him last year pitching relief for the Tigers in that series where the Mets ended their Grand Slam drought.
As I recall, that road trip to Texas and Detroit was the offensive apex of the season for the Mets.
It was. What was it, 299 games, Gary? Something like that? The Mets had gone without a Grand Slam.
And then they hit him in back-to-back innings.
Exactly.
Bay and then Beltran. Oh, 2 to Rotino. And he tries to hold up on the breaking ball in the dirt. 1-2. Benny spent last year in New Orleans in the Florida organization. He hit .304 with 10 home runs. 374 on base percentage. So he's a good offensive player.
It's always the most difficult part, isn't it, in the offseason when you're trying to catch on with another team, trying to figure out where the depth chart is. Do I have a chance with this team better than that team?
Benny's now 31 years old. There goes Neuenhuis. And no play for Flores, so Neuenhuis steals a base, and the Mets have been running a lot in his first game of the spring. Torres stole a base earlier, now Neuenhuis has one.
Well, he gets a good jump, and once again another good pitch to steal on the breaking ball in the dirt.
Neuenhuis beat out that double play grounder, but he's got plenty of speed. The ex-football player, much sought after running back.
So he's in scoring position with the tying run. 1-2 to Rotino. He fouls one back.
Good cut by Rotino right there. It was his pitch to hit.
Josh Satin waiting on deck. Benny Rotino from the University of Wisconsin at La Crosse.
Oh. How many players from Wisconsin? They play less games than the East Coast guys.
Does the University of Wisconsin have more campuses?
They do. They do.
Whitewater and Eau Claire and Madison and Milwaukee, and they're all over the place.
Isn't Jordan Zimmerman from one of those Wisconsin schools with a?
And of course, Bob Wickman was from that part of the world. I think he was a Whitewater guy. Here's the 2-2. And a check swing. He went around, strike 3. So Stammen has his second strikeout, and the Mets are done in the bottom of the 5th. Danny Herrera making his way to the mound. It's 2-1 Washington after 5. Crystal clear night in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Mets playing their first exhibition game, and lefty Daniel Ray Herrera will take over the pitching.
You sure he was able to get all that hair into that pants of
Roush? Well, he got into that single pant leg of Roush's up to his neck, and then he took the other leg and kind of wrapped it around like it was a toga. It was fascinating. But yeah, the hair is here's a whole nother story.
You know, when you're a littler guy, you got to take a shot with something different, you know.
Well, the fact that Danny Herrera is a big league pitcher is fascinating. He's 5'6", 155 pounds, and he doesn't throw very hard. He's got a little screwball that he tries to master to keep the hitters off balance. But you know, it's a testament to anybody that size to be playing Major League Baseball.
It says a lot about how big his heart is. That's what it tells you.
Out of the football country of Odessa, Texas.
Midland, Odessa.
You know, Friday Night Lights.
I just knew that bus ride in the Texas League, Keith. Oh my God.
Those bus ride. I swore I'd never go back to the Texas League. Tarantulas in Odessa.
Although that's after he put the pants on regularly. Those are Roush's pants. It's after he had done the single leg pull up. Those are major league pants, let me tell you. Pulled down to third, past the diving Rotino, and it's a base hit for Brett Carroll. And he dives into second base, and he's tagged out. Kind of stuck in the ground on the initial dive, didn't quite get there. And Baxter's throw got there in time. Valdespin with the tag for the first down.
Well, nice play by Baxter here. Mike, was a perfect throw, nice tag all the way around. Try to pull the phantom slide here. That doesn't work in the big leagues. Just go right after the body. Beautiful.
And especially doesn't work in spring training. Anything close usually goes to the out.
Nice throw.
Yep. The Mets have imported some good outfield arms. Baxter is one of them, and Adam Lowen, a former pitcher, who's playing right field right now, is another.
See, Mr. Harper takes this at bat against the lefty.
He's singled to center and drawn a walk. And he hacks at that breaking ball, and it's 0-2. And that just missed. Ball and 2 strikes to Harper. Tim Burdack, fresh from his 279 on the lanes last night. 279.
Formidable. I mean, come on.
At one point through 13 straight strikes. Slashed down to third, and Rotino makes the play. He's going to beat it. Safe. And Bryce Harper, we talked about his speed, looked like a routine chopper to third, but Harper beats it out for an infield hit.
Well, here's the pat. Pat the glove. See a lot of that.
A 19-year-old kid trying to make the team.
He can fly.
He comes out of the game for a pinch runner.
Kind of a swing, a run and swing there by Harper.
It's an Ichiro play.
Yes.
It's Corey Brown running for Harper at first base. And Jesus Flores takes a strike. Flores has reached on an error and been hit by a pitch. Interesting that the last starter in the game for the Nats is their catcher. One and one to Flores. Let's check in with Kevin.
First outing, always good to get number 1 out of the way. How'd you feel out there tonight?
Really, I felt pretty good. For the first game, under the lights, I think I couldn't ask for too much more. Pitches felt good.
Talking to Dylan G, of course, who got the start tonight. You had mentioned early in camp about working on that curveball. What exactly do you have to work on?
Well, last year, it was all around bad. I was casting it and it was just popping out. And this year, it's been a lot better so far. The other day in the inner squad, it had a lot of bite on it, and tonight it had some bite. I just wasn't throwing it for a strike, but that will come. But just at this point, it feels a lot better.
I mean, is it something also, it looks like you're talking about actually how the pitch worked, but is it something also that you need to use more in different situations in games?
I think so. I mean, the curveball, I'm a guy that relies on every pitch. So if I can start throwing curveballs for a strike and then balance them when I need to, that's just going to give me another pitch that I can use behind the count, especially.
Well, for you coming in here where, you know you're going to be in this rotation, what is that like for you? How does that change things for you, knowing that you could come in and kind of relax and just work on your stuff?
Well, I don't like to take it that way. I don't want to take it for granted that I have a spot. I'm trying to come out and prepare myself for a full year, whether that's wherever it is.
How do you do that?
Just like I said, like tonight, I was out there, working on stuff, working on repeating the mechanics, working on the changeup, make sure they're getting the field down and command of the fastball. And that's what I'm looking for at this point.
Has the goatee added any kind of magic, any kind of sync, anything?
Not yet. It hasn't really had anything.
You look like you should be in a rock band or something. I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah, Reese Havens told me earlier I should be part of the Zach Brown band.
Well, certainly good to get out there tonight and have an effective outing. Dylan, thanks for the time, okay?
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Dylan G, guys, go back up to you now.
Interview brought to you by Xerox. Xerox Business of Baseball. Xerox ready for real business. This is Anthony Rendon, last year's #1 draft pick for the Nats. He's yet to make his professional debut. Right now, Baseball America has him listed as the Nats' #2 prospect behind Bryce Harper. Give you an idea how well he's regarded, but he's no match for that screwball, and it's 1-2.
Well, young Mr. Rendon put some numbers up in Rice, where he was an amazing college player. 187 games. He walked 176 times with 52 bombs and 194 RBIs for a college player.
He's only 6 feet and 190 pounds, but they say he's got incredible wrist strength.
They said he's a little bit like Dan Uggla, a little short in size, but very strong upper body.
Rendon's 21 years old. I'm not quite sure what his position's going to be. He's a third baseman right now, but there's no room at the end there for Washington. And he goes around on the half swing, and Danny Herrera works around a couple of hits in the 6th. 2-1 Nats. We go to the bottom of the 6th inning. Our guys in the truck are in midseason form. Wow. Got the music going and everything. Dan Barr at the top of his game. Josh Satin leads off in the bottom of the 6th inning. And he takes a strike from the new Washington pitcher Ryan Perry. That is Jonathan Solano, who's now doing the catching for the Nats. Corey Brown out in right field, replacing Bryce Harper. Josh Satin, who was the organization player of the year for the Mets last year, had a terrific season. There you see Perry's numbers with the Tigers last year. Satin now 27 years old and getting toward make or break time in his career as he takes a breaking ball for ball 2. The biggest problem for Josh is he's not a big home run hitter, and he doesn't really have a position.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that is a batting title kind of guy. I'm not saying in the major leagues, but you know.
He hit 325 at Binghamton, 317 at Buffalo last year, 12 home runs. Had 25 at bats with the Mets. Hit 200.
It's Craig Stamen getting a little extra throwing in the bullpen. Did a nice job, but was a little erratic with his control.
Now, Ronnie, question. You know more about pitching than I do. His extra work down there. It's because they want these guys, other guys, to pitch, and he didn't throw as many pitches. They want him to go get a little more work.
It's either he didn't meet his pitch count, or he's very unhappy with his control or his breaking pitch. Or another thing, Keith, you go into a game with a game plan to throw some breaking pitches, and then you never get to them. So you go do your work on the side, which is, it helps, but it's pretty useless as far as, you know, recreating what happens out on the mound.
But at least you already have your sweat up, and it's better than coming out cold.
That's right.
Throwing those. He threw 26 pitches in his 2 innings. Stamen did. You see guys out running the warning track, as we frequently see after they're out of the game in spring training. 3-2 to Satin was fouled off. Perry last year, 36 games with the Tigers. And it's flared the other way, and that falls foul. Which one of you has the day off tomorrow?
That'll be Chief.
Me. I got Friday.
Oh, there you go.
Well, you've worked hard today.
Well, when it's all over and done with, I'll have my 10 games under my belt. Ronnie, you'll have your 10.
Ready to go.
How many are you going to have under your belt at the end of the spring training?
Less than the 2 of you?
Well, I wouldn't bring it up again.
I'll make it up during the regular season.
He's double dipping right now.
Yeah, no, you will see me for a couple of weeks.
That's
after
right.
tonight.
What a God, that's fantastic. That always has been. That Big East tournament.
60 degrees. That's cold by Florida standards.
Yes, it is.
And Satin lines one to center, and on the 10th pitch of the at-bat, he has a base hit. Well, if you followed the news today, you probably have heard that Judge Jed Rakoff ruled on 2 motions in the Madoff case today. He granted the trustee's motion that he can recover up to $83 million in profits from dozens of entities with ties to Mets ownership. However, less than $2 million of that total relate directly from Mets accounts. He also ruled that a trial would commence March 19th on the question of whether the Mets owners were willfully blind to Madoff's scheme. However, the judge said he remains skeptical, those are his words, that a jury would find in favor of the trustee. If the jury finds in favor of Mets ownership on that key question of willful blindness, the Mets ownership could end up owing far less than that $83 million figure. And whatever happens at trial, either side is likely to appeal, and no money will change hands until that potential appeal was completed. But the bottom line is the trial is going to start in a couple of weeks, and we'll see what happens from there. Mike Baxter up for the first time. I will say this: if the final figure winds up being $83 million or less, I think that the Wilpons and Mr. Katz will feel completely vindicated, judging by their statements and actions since this thing began. But there's no way of knowing what a jury is going to do, despite what the judge said today. 1-1 the count to Baxter. Adam Lowen waiting on deck. That's batting in the bottom of the 6th, trailing 2-1. There goes Satin. Flores with the high throw, and Satin's in with a stolen base.
Keith, have you ever seen so much hitting and running and stealing in the first game? For the Mets, anyway.
Well, no, actually, Davey Johnson hit and ran successfully.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Earlier in the game. So, no, not this early.
Do you think this is guys running on their own, trying to make an impression, or is this Terry?
He looked back to home plate. That was a hit and run.
And a pitch in the dirt that I guess Baxter felt he couldn't offer at. So now it's a 1-2 count.
If it was the hit and run, he's going to wish he offered at it.
Line the other way, and he's got himself a base hit. Satin will pull in at third, held there by Timmy Tuffle. And the Mets have runners at the corners with nobody out.
Now, of course, for you fans at home, seeing Timmy over there, Tim Tuffle at third base, you know in the minor leagues, the managers coach third base of their team. So lots of experience over there. Tom Goodwin, the new coach at first.
Chip Hale, last year's Mets third base coach, now in Oakland. In a similar job there.
Right fielder, number 20, Adam Lowen.
Here's Adam Lowen batting for the first time. Lowen, kind of a parallel to the Rick Ankiel story, a guy who was a highly regarded pitcher and flamed out in that role and has made a comeback as an outfielder, and he is a very large outfielder.
Yes, he is. He's Adam Dunn-like.
That's a good comparison. Physically, he's just about that size. Hopefully, he has a better year than Adam Dunn had last year.
You know, I saw him next to Ike, and Ike is a tall guy, and he dwarfed Ike.
Well, he's listed at 6'6", 235. First round draft pick by the Orioles, 4th overall pick back in 2002. But after making it to the big leagues with the Orioles in 06, pitched parts of 3 seasons, but arm problems got in the way, and now he's trying the other side. And there goes Baxter, gets a huge jump, and he's in safely with the Mets' 4th stolen base of the game. Satin holding at third.
Got to start holding runners on a little bit, don't you?
That's fortunate that didn't cost him a run on the bad throw by Flores. Lowen, who made it back to the big leagues with Toronto last year, had 32 at-bats with the Blue Jays. And now trying to win a job as a left-handed bat off the bench with the Mets. And it's pretty much right at this point, it's between Lowen and Baxter for that job. That's not to say that there won't be other names thrown into the hat at some point.
Let him swing, Keith?
I would.
Yes.
I've always wanted a 3-0 hit sign spring training to get my rhythm. More than likely going to get a fastball.
So Lucas May on deck to pinch hit. And there's a strike. 3-1.
Boy, quick on the trigger there. People here at the stadium had Walk Like a Man playing already, and it was not.
That's spring training for the, the scoreboard operators, too. Second and third and nobody out. Chance for Lowen to get the game tied or give the Mets the lead. He chases that sinker away, and it's 3-2. Ryan Perry trying to fight himself out of a jam. And he comes back from 3-0 to strike out Lowen for the first out.
That was a good change up there, Keith.
Well, struggling, and if you can do that, you tip your hat as a hitter.
Well, Perry trying to latch on to what figures to be a very strong bullpen for the Nationals. We saw plenty of Tyler Clippard last year, Drew Storen at the end of games, but now they've got Brad Lidge as well. Got the hard-throwing Henry Rodriguez and the lefty Sean Burnett and Gorzelani. Off the outside corner to Lucas May. May put in a little bit of big league time with Kansas City 2 years ago. He's in camp as a candidate for a backup catcher's job. Mike Nickius is certainly the favorite to win that job, but is by no means a lock. In fact, Terry Collins intimated the other day that it wasn't a lock that Josh Tolley was his #1 catcher. So he's trying to keep things competitive.
Well, I think that's an important thing to do. Have an open camp. Say, listen, I didn't see enough of my catching last year. I want to see them all go out here and try to fight for the job. And the guy who wins the job, that means that he was readier when camp started.
I think that Terry has a lot that he still would like to see, particularly in terms of game calling from all his catchers. Lashed the other way, but right at the first baseman Moore for the second out. So that's at second and third and nobody out. Terry comes back from 3-0 to strike out low and gets a little fortunate there on a hard line drive by May, and now there are 2 out. And now Mike Nickius, who has probably swung the bat better than any of the other catching hopefuls, and that's significant because clearly that's the part of Mike's game that he needs to improve.
Yeah, if he can prove he can hit enough, a situation like this would be a great way to start, right? A couple of outs.
Talked to Mike last week, and he said he spent the entire offseason focused on nothing but hitting, trying to uncomplicate his swing. And, you know, he knows what's before him. He knows the chance that he has. And now Perry falls behind again, 2-0. Satin is at third. He led off with a 10-pitch at bat and singled to center. Mike Baxter followed with a base hit. And now Perry behind on Mickey is 3-0. Ronnie Cedeno is the on deck bat. Waiting for his first trip to the plate. Strike 3-1.
Well, Perry's just been playing with fire this whole inning. He's just been behind on everybody. But he's one out from getting out of this.
Rafael Martin up in the bullpen for the Nationals. Now the 3-1. And Nickius fouls one by. Full count. So Perry again, after putting himself in a 3-0 hole, has gotten back to 3-2. And Nickius grounds one toward the hole. Blanco with a long throw to make, right on target. And Perry gets himself out of big-time trouble in the 6th inning. We played 6 in the spring training opener. It's 2-1 Washington.
You know, weight loss program.
Nationals 2-1 over the Mets. Spring training baseball is back. That's exciting here at Digital Domain Park tonight. We welcome you back to the broadcast. And Matt Harvey joins me now. We had the outing tonight. What is that like? Here you are in big league camp, and you're the second guy to take the mound in spring training games, right? What does that feel like?
It was fun. You know, it's always good to get, you know, some other competition in there. You know, it's just a big honor for me to be here.
Terry Collins was saying early in camp how one of the things he loves about you is that you're always asking, what can I do to get here? What do I have to do to get to the next level? What do I have to do to get to the big leagues? So what have they been telling you? What do you have to do?
Just throw strikes. You know, keep the ball down. You know, it's something that I've been working on for, you know, a couple years now. Is getting the fastball down. And, it's always been my dream to go to the big leagues. So, you know, why not ask questions?
Is it tangible now? Once you're on this side and you come to big league camp, can you feel it almost?
I mean, it's there. I'm not going to try and ignore it, but you know, I still have some work to do, and you know, I can't make those decisions, so I can only control what I do on the mound, and whatever happens from there happens.
I know you weren't completely thrilled with your fastball command. How do you get that command the way you want it to go?
Just not be so fine. You know, that first inning I was, you know, good right around the plate, and you know, really just going after it. And then second inning I tried to nitpick a little bit, and got behind some hitters, and you know, that's a learning process, and you know, sticking to my approach, and not just keeping it one inning, but going a little bit more than that.
You got that big double play though, and that sinker is something that you worked on in the offseason. How comfortable are you getting now with that two-seamer?
I mean, I like it. You know, once I have it over the plate, it's working nice. But you know, I let it fly a little bit today, and it was, you know, a little bit off the plate. But you know, once I keep it down and get it working pretty good, it's nice to get a quick 1-2-3 out there. Quick ground ball, you know.
Burdack issues the walk. You were in Atlanta in the offseason. You worked with Mike Nickius. How did that process work? Did you reach out to him, and what was it like getting a chance to kind of get with him and throw every other day and kind of get on the same page, if you would?
I mean, it was awesome. You know, Mike actually texted me and found out that I was down working out at Georgia Tech, and you know, I had it was a perfect situation, and you know, we went down there. I got used to throwing to him, and you know, I've been telling everybody it's like throwing to, I don't even know what, but it's unbelievable throwing to Mike.
Why?
He makes you feel great about everything you throw. I mean, you throw a good fastball in the bullpen, and he's like, yeah, that's good. And you know, always excited about everything, and you know, he'd have great feedback for me, and it's. No, he's just a great guy.
Burdack quick off the mound there to get the lead out. As we talk to Matt Harvey, you know, there's another dynamic here at campus. Terry Collins has got you involved, to say the least. You're telling jokes of the day. You're getting up in front of the room. How have you come up with a joke of the day? I mean, that seems almost as daunting as getting out on the mound here tonight.
Yeah, it's starting to get tough on me, though. I've run out of Google jokes for the last, you know, it's about 10 in a row right now, and
I mean, does that keep going to the end of camp?
I certainly hope not, but it seems like it's going to. And they keep warning me that it is. So if anybody has any good jokes, you can send them my way. That would be very helpful.
All right. Well, do you have any good ones that can go over the air? Or are they probably not best for the telecast tonight? We'll get that out.
I tried to say one that was proper and good, and I kind of got booed for that. So it's
you get booed
a little bit. Either that or crickets, and crickets are worse. So.
Well, Matt, listen, it was fun watching you pitch. We know we're going to get a chance to do it all spring, and good luck this spring and making this team, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Guys, Matt Harvey, let's go back up to you.
You guys have any suggestions for him?
For you folks at home, crickets is when you tell a joke and no sound is made. The whole room is quiet. So, no, I'm a bad joke teller.
By the way, the interview with Matt Harvey, part of the Xerox business of baseball. Xerox ready for real business. I'm used to getting groans. That's Zach Walters, by the way, pinch running for Andres Blanco. He's wearing Ryan Zimmerman's number 11, which was a little confusing. Zimmerman's not here tonight. He's basking in the glow of his new $100 million contract.
I don't think that'll be the last time it happens here in spring training, Gary.
Probably not. Of course, the day that Zimmerman came to that deal with the Nationals, what did all the reporters in Mets camp do? Went right to David Wright's locker. Fly ball, shallow left center, and Nieuwenhuis takes charge and makes the stumbling grab. 2 out. Jonas Schwartz and Joe Beningo will break down the brackets for this week's Big East tournament, plus bring you exclusive Mets player and coach interviews straight from Port St. Lucie on Daily News Live, presented by Citi, part of the New York Sports Local, weekdays at 5 on SNY. Now Carlos Rivero, who took over at third base, will bat for the first time. He was in the Phillies organization last year. There's Rafael Martin up again in the Nats bullpen. Martin's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Guy did play for 4 years and then tried out for the Mexican League.
He was working in construction for 4 years. I mean, this is Washington's Goodwill Hunting pitching story here.
Like a Chris Coast kind of a story.
That's right. There you go. What was the guy's name that was coaching the team? White was his last name, the lefty that ended up pitching for Tampa Bay.
Oh, you mean the rookie?
Yeah, the rookie.
Miguel Batista at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's right.
Has been pitching in the big leagues for 20 years. Popped up on the right side. And Satin takes charge and stays with it. And that ends the inning. So a leadoff walk. Stranded. 7th inning stretch time. 2-1 Washington.
The 2000.
Tickets for the 2012 season are on sale now. Get to Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX for your tickets.
Well, it's only been a couple of weeks, but the news still feels fresh. The passing of Gary Carter, who was such an enormous piece of Mets history from his arrival in 1985 through the championship year of '86 and all the work that he did after his playing days as a coach, as a manager, and great teammate. And it's the first time we've been together since Gary's passing, and I know this was a very difficult piece of news for both of you to take.
Well, we knew it was coming, and it really hit me hard. I didn't think it would hit me so hard because I thought I was prepared, you know, and I knew when they made him comfortable, it was just a matter of a few days, and it still just really hit me hard. And, you know, he was the final piece that Frank Cashin, when he put together that 80s team, and his leadership. He played hard, he played hurt. He was always getting I'll never forget getting his knees iced, his knees taped, and going back down there and squatting down being 9 innings. And you can always come to the ballpark every day. and know that Gary Carter would be in the lineup. So, great player. It was wonderful for him. It was the last piece of his career, too. He had never won. He'd come close a few times, and he got to a World Series and won. So he'll be missed. I'll miss him, and, it's just unfortunate. Way too young.
I was really lucky at the end of the postseason that I worked. World Series comes and Major League Baseball asked me with the Stand Up to Cancer people to shoot a small commercial where we held a chalkboard and we could write in whatever we wanted to write in. And I wrote my catcher. And to just, to be there for Gary and to let people know that I was there. And not me, our 86 team was there for him. And when the World Series started in the third inning, it showed a commercial. And as soon as it came on the TV, I got a text from a number down here I did not know. I see the text. It's from Gary. And by the time I read it, I don't know if he sent it with tears, but by the time I read it, I was in tears. And I was just so happy that it meant so much to him.
You think of the 86 team as a young group, and I look at you guys, and you're still both very young. And to think about an athlete dying young, it's a cliche, but this is a guy who lived his life the right way, and yet succumbs to the worst kind of disease at such a young age.
And he was just full of life too. He was exuberant, and everything he did. It's just really tragic. And my heart goes out for the Carter family and Sandy. Of course, I was at the memorial. It was a very wonderful memorial. Johnny Bench just made a speech at the memorial that was just so wonderful.
I was stunned to hear the number of Hall of Famers who appeared at that memorial as we look at the patch the Mets will be wearing all year in honor of the guy known as Kid.
There's such a feeling of immortality when you're young and playing, and you think that you're just so big and strong, and when something like this happens, it just buckles you to the core.
Cedeno on with the walk.
And I think it's important to note, the Mets have done the right thing. They're going to have the Carter family on opening day at Citi Field, and I think that's wonderful that they're coming, and the Mets are going to do that for them.
And that the Met fans can, for at least that day, show the Carter family how much he was loved. And
really loved in so many quarters. And we know all about his impact on New York, and we know about Montreal, but what about his impact as a college coach?
Yeah.
And coaching at a relatively small school where he had an enormous impact down here in Florida, and the fact that he was able to make that one last appearance at his team's opening game, just so they knew that he, even though he was in his final days and probably knew it at that time, knew how much his players meant to him. And hearing from guys who played for Gary the passion that he brought to the game even after he stopped playing.
And Gary, as a player, had a charitable foundation before anyone even knew what that meant, because he was trying to do good. And the thing about Gary is he was such the kid on the baseball field, but kind of forget, lost his mom at a young age. He and his brother had to grow up very, very quickly. And I think that baseball diamond was, he had to be so serious and so mature around his house that the baseball field was one place that he could still be a kid, and maybe time stood still for him in that way.
Well, in that 86 season in the playoffs, he was struggling. If you recall, they walked me intentionally to pitch the kid, and he got the game-winning base hit off Charlie Kerfell up the middle, the base hit up the middle. He started that famous rally with 2 outs, and we're down in the 6-game 6. It's just all, to me, is just exemplifies his character and the person that he was.
And people talk about him being the final piece, and he certainly was in terms of making you guys a championship team, but also for all the talent that you guys had on that team, you had a lot of very strong personalities, and Gary was different, and yet he was able to function in that clubhouse with you, Keith, as a leader, two very different kinds of people and two very different kinds of leaders.
And two people in different stages of their life. And it was all about winning, Gary. You know, you got 25 guys that come together, and everybody's different, but you have one thing in common, and that is you're a team. You start in spring training. 7 months later, if you win the World Series, you've attained what you wanted. That's the goal, and that's what brought us all together.
Cedeno runs. It's a strike, and Cedeno caught stealing. Well, the Mets have stolen 4 bases today. Cedeno trying to make it 5, but a strong throw by Jonathan Solano gets Cedeno for the first out.
No wasted motion right there. It took a good throw to get him.
On cue, as we're talking about Carter, we see catcher make a strong throw.
Well, you know, don't forget, we always talk about him being the final piece. Gary had his best years in Montreal, but don't forget that he had won nothing in Montreal. So coming to us and our team and knowing the kind of talent that you saw around, he was as hungry as you'd see any veteran player to come to a ball club because he knew this was his chance.
86, he would have been the National League MVP if he hadn't gotten hurt. Remember, he got hurt around midseason.
Eddie Hearn played for a while.
Eddie Hearn played for a while and filled in beautifully for Gary. But Gary drove in 100 runs that year. And we would have won going away. Kid would have probably drove in 120. And he would have been the locked for the MVP. And he was unfortunate he got hurt.
One thing I'll remember about Gary, and there could be some surly personalities in the morning of day games on that team, but I'll tell you, he never was. And he used to get his knee taped in the training room, and the table was so high that they had to take one of the panels in the ceiling. They just lifted it out through, kept it on the ceiling. So whenever you'd see Gary, you'd come into the locker room, he would be getting his leg taped from Bob Sykes, but you only see him from the neck down because his head would be over the ceiling through that roof. And that was my always remember a kid that way, because always trying to do whatever he could to get on the field.
You know, when I first came to the Mets in 1989, it was Gary's last year with the Mets and Keith's last year, and every Sunday I had to do a pregame interview, Sunday day games. Kid was always the go-to guy because the rest of you,
not a lot of choices on that team.
That's ball forward. Valdespina's out of the walk.
I was 14 and 14 in '89. I had nothing to talk about, Gary. Only bad things.
David Johnson, who certainly was very happy to have Gary Carter as part of his team. And you know, it's interesting how players and managerial styles mesh. You know, Davey was kind of hands off, and you know, he had folks like Kidd and like Keith who could handle the stuff that managers sometimes have to these days.
Well, Eddie Lynch always tells me the story about Gary. He was getting a spot start, and he came in and he was pitching on a Sunday afternoon, and he comes in, he sees the lineup, and he's got the B team, and he goes up to Gary and says, Gary, I'm struggling, I'm trying to get back in the rotation, you got to catch me today. The kid had been told the night before that he was off. When Eddie asked him that, he went right into Davey's office, and the next thing you know, Kid was in the lineup. So he was really that kind of guy.
Really?
Yes, that kind of guy.
Yes. And Davey, one time we were talking, and he always gave Kid a rest on Sunday, and he was getting a lot of mail from Frank Cashin, Davey himself, fans really complaining that, hey, I work 9 to 5, I can't go to weekday games. I want to go. I come to the ballpark. I want to see Gary Carter play. I remember Davey saying, Kid's got bad knees. I can't. I got to sit him down with a day game after a night game.
And Bobby Valentine got the same heat when he used to rest Mike Piazza on Sundays. Understandably so. Vinny Rotino up for the second time, struck out after taking over at third base, and there goes Valdespine. And this time Solano's throw just a shade too late. Boy, this kid's got a good arm.
I'll say. Third stolen base for the Mets. This kid's got a cannon and the quick release. That's a better throw than the first one. He just barely got in.
Well, the Mets have stolen 5 bases tonight. Been caught only once. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this especially the first game of spring training.
White flag it, Davey. I mean, come on.
Terry has him off and running. Trying to make up a 1-run deficit here in the 7th inning. 1-1 to Rotino. Well, the one thing we can say for sure is there'll never be another one like him. He was effervescent, and he was talented, and he was passionate, and he was a Hall of Famer. Yeah, in every respect. Rafael Martin trying to get himself through the bottom of the 7th. 1-2 to Rotino. And he fouls it away.
It's going to be a tough moment up in this booth when Gary's family's on the field, Gary. You might have to take it solo for a while.
Breaking ball, strike 3 called. Rotino down to end the inning. Number 8. We'll always remember. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. get a first look at Johan Santana on the hill as the Mets continue their schedule in Port St. Lucie against the Cardinals here at Digital Domain Park. Mets Cardinals presented by Citi tomorrow at 1 p.m. only on SNY. Here's your Citi checking in around the majors. Andrew McCutchen, new 6-year, $51 million deal with the Pirates, buys him out of the first 2 years of free agency. Carlos Beltran, now a Cardinal. Albert Pujols, now not a Cardinal.
I get it.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of change in St. Louis. No Tony La Russa, no Dave Duncan, and no Albert Pujols. And yet, you look around that team, they might have a chance to repeat.
Because they got Wainwright back.
That's exactly right. And Carlos Beltran doesn't hurt either. 41-year-old Miguel Batista will pitch the 8th inning for the Mets.
Did you mention Beltran and Wainwright in the same sentence?
I did. They're teammates now. And that's not a curveball. Chad, that's who's the hitter? I'm lost.
Tyler Moore.
Tyler Moore took over for Chad Tracy at first base. See what he did in Double-A last year. First at bat for Moore after Tracy went 0 for 3.
I was surprised to see that San Diego gave Cameron Maben a big extension.
4-year piece.
Jeez.
Well, Maben has great talent. And last year he started to show it a little bit more than he did in Florida. So it's a calculated gamble on the Padres' part. Bouncing ball to short. Cedeno was there. By the way, speaking of the Padres, Did you see what Andrew Kashner did the other day? The kid who used to be with the Cubs threw 102 miles an hour in a spring training game. 102. Now it's it's thin air in the desert.
Adrenaline
still. Well, Kashner, I mean, he was a guy who the Cubs expected was going to be a big time starter for them, but it never happened there. We'll see whether he blossoms in San Diego now that he's hit the gun at 102.
Not a good poker player. You got to hold back a little bit, at least the first couple of days.
Maybe he's got more.
Yeah, if he gets the 110, then I'm wrong.
Here's Brett Carroll up for the second time at a base hit, tried to stretch it into a double, and Mike Baxter threw him out in the 6th inning. Taken low for ball 1. Carroll, the former Florida Marlin, trying to latch on with a job in Washington. And he takes a strike, 1-1. Let's check in with Kevin.
Well, guys, one of the things about spring training in Florida is the East Coast. There's not many teams left, but we know the Mets will be here for a while. They extended their lease with St. Lucie County to 2023. And with that came multi-million-dollar renovations to this ballpark. One of them is I'm standing on this bridge. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it connects the rest of the ballpark to the berm, and that never happened. You used to have to go all the way out and come back in and have the special ticket. So now you can kind of mosey on down there and let the kids run out on the berm. Also, new seats added here to my right. These used to be all bleachers. Now they're all seats. 502 seats added, all facing home plate. They got a new HD scoreboard, 20 by 36 there. So it's a lot of different renovations here, a lot of changes to the ballpark. And don't know about the other teams. The Mets are going to be in this area for a long time to come.
And part of that, Kevin, if I'm not mistaken, is they built a new clubhouse, which might make it easier, perhaps down the road, to attract a second team to Port St. Lucie.
You're exactly right, Gary. Back they have this huge party area now and this big bar behind me. Underneath, there's an enormous space, and it could be anything. But one of the things it could be room for a clubhouse. That's for sure.
Well, certainly with the dearth of teams in the general vicinity, you've got the Cardinals and the Marlins down in Jupiter, and you've got the Nationals up in Vieira, although the Nationals are talking about trying to move out of there.
Wow.
And maybe move over to Fort Myers on the West Coast, and that would trim the local teams even more so. It would certainly be a great benefit to the Mets to have another tenant in this building.
Yeah.
Guys, the interesting thing is, say like a team like the Nationals, there's been speculation about them in Vieira, but would you share a facility with a team in your division? Just food for thought.
Well, it's not an ideal situation, but certainly as the situation exists now, the Mets play so many games in spring training against the Nats, against the Marlins, against the Braves, and you'd prefer not to have it that way if you have a choice. You'd love to get an American League team in here, but the exodus from the east coast of Florida has been very troubling, both to Arizona and over to the Gulf Coast.
Well, the Cardinals and the Mets, both in St. Petersburg, used the Al Lang facility for years, and having those two teams so close was outstanding because we'd have those 10 o'clock games. You could get your work in and you were done by noon, and then the 1 o'clock game would come, and just being so close, you were able to get a lot of work in.
Long turn at bat for Carroll. This will be the 9th pitch, and he pops it up. Valdespin out, making the call, called off by Neuenhuis, and he drops the ball. Trying for second is Carroll, and he is safe. So Neuenhuis, who made a couple of difficult catches earlier, this time unable to make the grab, and Carroll winds up on second.
Well, he's calling them off all the way. It's just the one hand, that's it.
One hand, and just took his eye off the ball for a split second.
Give Carroll credit, he's hustling all the way.
But he almost pulled a hammy. that restart.
So, if you use two hands, you got it. That's always embarrassing. We've all dropped pop-ups and throws, and boy, if you found a hole you can dig deep enough.
But let's be honest, with the size of outfielders' gloves these days, how many actually catch the ball with two hands?
Oh, listen, we've had coaches tell us for ad nauseum for half hour, an hour about how catching with one hand is the way it's going to go. No, I don't agree with it, but that's there's different ways of teaching the game.
So Carroll winds up at second on the Mets' second error of the game. Justin Turner had a ground ball go through his legs back in the second inning. That did not cost the Mets. Corey Brown up for the first time, and a good slider by Batista, 1-1. Well, there's the map of Florida, and you can see the Mets just north of where the Marlins and Cardinals share the facility. You got the Nationals about an hour and a half to the north, and that's it. I mean, the next closest team is Houston, and they're up in Kissimmee, a good 2 hours away.
And it used to be the Orioles were in Miami, the Yankees were in Fort Lauderdale, the Rangers were in Pompano Beach.
Right. I expect you to telestrate that map, by the way.
Well, will we have a telestrator down here?
Dodgers and Vero was
Dodgers and Vero, and West Palm Beach had the Montreal Expos and the Braves.
Right.
That's right.
Well, the Dodgers leaving really just completely changed the complexion of this area. I mean, the Dodgers were here from 1948 until 2 years ago.
Now, I remember in our day, we would, it's probably not cost effective now, that's probably why it's not done, but we always would take that 3 or 4 day road trip where you'd go to the other coast and you'd stay in one hotel and play 3 or 4 teams and head back.
Well, they may have no choice, but they don't want to do that. They want to be able to be in their
facility
complex. And, in those days, you didn't have nearly as many fields and as many facilities available to you in your own complex, so it's a little bit different. However, the Mets are going to the west coast of Florida for their last spring training game this year for the first time since I think 1996. They're playing a home-and-home down in Florida with the Yankees.
That's our last broadcast. Here at St. Lucie is going to be the Yankee game on. I believe that's going to be on the Tuesday before opening day, which is Thursday.
And then the Wednesday they play in Tampa before going up north to open on Thursday the 5th.
Not quite the Mayor's Trophy, but a start.
I always loved that trip over across the coast. It broke up spring training.
Oh, big time.
Corey Brown hits one foul.
Got to get out of the routine of being home. You got on the road. You got on the hotel for 3 days. You just went to the ballpark, bus to the stadium, the team you were playing. You were like a visit. It was like playing a seasonal game.
That's
right.
Always
day games, and you can go out to dinner afterwards with the guys.
Maybe that's what we enjoyed.
You're sounding a little nostalgic there.
Baseball's going to end up being secondary by the time we finish this riff.
There'd be a couple of tongues dragging the next day of that day game. I guarantee you that.
Well, Miguel Batista turned in some nice starts for the Mets last year, and particularly his final outing of the season. He finished the season in fine fashion, closing the season with a shutout performance against the Cincinnati Reds. And now at age 41, trying to find a job in some role. And he certainly is a candidate to make this team as a long reliever. Bouncer over the mound. And Cedeno has to reach in a second time, and that costs him the play. Cedeno unable to get out of his glove cleanly after making a nice charge.
Well, he does everything right, but just the exchange and good hustle down the line.
It's 3 errors for the Mets now. Sloppy inning here.
It appears they have given Brown a base hit.
Oh. I'd give him a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it wasn't really like he didn't boot it, even though he couldn't grab the handle.
So now Jonathan Solano, who has already shown off his arm, and now will get his first turn at bat. The Nats won 80 games last year, finished 3.5 games ahead of the Mets in the standings. Nats finished 3rd. The Mets finished 4th in the National League East last year. But this is a division that just keeps getting better. Although the one team that you have to wonder whether they got better was the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
Especially now that Ryan Howard is having such a slow recovery from the Achilles injury that ended the Phillies season.
I mean, have you ever seen anything like that in your life? A season ends and the young man goes down with a...
One team celebrating, the other guy's crumpled on the field.
I've never seen anything like I had to do that game. Not had to do it. I enjoyed doing it. But to watch him crumpled, it was hard to watch them celebrating and watching a young man in so much pain.
Well, there's probably no worse baseball injury for a position player than a torn Achilles.
And especially a man of the stature and how large that Ryan is. He's a big man, a lot of weight on that Achilles.
And he's already had a setback this spring.
Yeah.
And, you know, they brought Jim Thome into camp, but Thome can't play first base every day.
They're going to talk about Ty Wigginton to be playing most of the first base.
But I think that the larger issue with the Phillies, I mean, they have fantastic starting pitching. But the larger issue, that team's getting old. Charging Cedeno makes this play cleanly and gets the out at first, but a run comes in, and it's 3-1 Washington. I mean, the Phillies were the oldest team in the major leagues last year, and they're, you know, that much older this year. Jimmy Rollins is back with a new 3-year contract, and they really have not. I mean, they got younger in the outfield. Ibanez leaving and Dominic Brown taking his place, but.
Mayberry and Brown maybe, you know, or split or fight for that this spring training. Ibanez moves over to the Yankees. But, you know, they got the big equalizer, and that is every single day they throw someone out there that can dominate you, and that's a great gift to have for a team.
Here's Anthony Rendon up for the second time. Well, the other big question in the division is how do the Braves respond after the collapse that nobody noticed?
Yeah, because of the Red Sox.
Because of the Red Sox. I mean, the Braves had a collapse every bit the equal of Boston's or of the Mets of 07 and 08. And nobody outside of Atlanta seemed to realize that it happened.
And the Braves are the one team that didn't do anything in the offseason. They feel very strongly about that club. They got rid of Alex Gonzalez, the shortstop. He went over to Milwaukee.
Tyler Pasternicki, the rookie, is going to play shortstop.
They're going to give him a shot at short, and they've got a good young team there. They're going to need it from Chipper, obviously. He's getting older, and he's prone to injury this late in his career. But they got a pitching staff that's tough to beat.
And they're going to have a lot of young pitching sprinkled in as the season goes along. You got Randall Delgado and Julio Toronto made their debuts last year.
Yeah, Toronto gave up 6 bombs, in fact, yesterday. But, you know, in Florida, the wind blowing out sometimes. So they need to get a better year from Hayward. I mean, he's the kind of guy that should be a cornerstone kind of player, and he just, you know, whether it's injury or not, he did not have a good year last year.
There's ball 4 to Anthony Rendon, and also, you know, what also got lost in all the other things that were going on at the end of the season was that Brian McCann had a terrible finish. He had about $180 over the last 6 weeks, and sometimes it's hard when your catcher is a linchpin in your offense, and McCann just seemed to fade at the end of the season.
You have to really, you don't want to, and I think they have a real capable backup in David Ross, who's always plays pretty well, but that Atlanta Heat, you can't have a catcher catching 140 games, more like 125, 130.
Zach Walters up for the first time after pinch running and staying in the game at short.
They had Freddie Freeman, had a great rookie year, lost the rookie of the year to his teammate Kimbrel. So they've got some young talent there, and I guess Frank Wren feels confident with that roster. If you look at it, they're going to be tough.
Well, they rode the backs of Kimbrel and Venters as the ball is in the dirt, and out at third base is Corey Brown to end the inning. And you wonder, after those guys faded late last year, how did they respond coming back this year after all the work that they did through the middle of last season? Unearned run for the Nationals, and they now lead 3-1. SNY's Play Ball Award was a huge success. 6 in-need youth baseball leagues received a $5,000 grant to help pay for new equipment, uniforms, and field improvements. This season, it's your turn. Help your youth softball or baseball league with a $5,000 grant. Apply for the SNY Play Ball Award today at sny.tv/playball. Josh Satin up for the second time for New York. Single to center and stole a base his first time up. Facing the new Washington pitcher Valdez Joaquin, former San Francisco Giant. And he falls behind on Satin. Mike Baxter on deck. That's got a run in the first batter of the night. Andre second, came home on a Daniel Murphy base hit, and despite 5 stolen bases, the Mets have been held in check since. 2-1 to Satin.
Well, Satin's one of those guys who has a power arm. Only 5 games with the San Francisco Giants last year.
Just 25 years old, signed with the Nats as a free agent. Candidate to make the back end of their bullpen. And it's 2-2 to Satin. Well, we talked about every other team in the division last half inning. We didn't talk about the Miami Marlins, who have made the greatest improvements this year with the addition of Jose Reyes and Heath Bell and Mark Burley, and of course their new manager Ozzie Guillen, and their new ballpark, and their new name, and their new logo.
Didn't take Ozzie too long in Chicago to get a World Series, did it? They made that trade for that right fielder Giancarlo Stanton. Good player.
And he dropped the ball yesterday. He was better as Mike.
They don't care if he drops it. They just want him to drop it over the fence.
He'll hit his 40 home runs. Whereas Mike Stanton, whose given name is Giancarlo, has made it known he wants to be known as Giancarlo. Satin hits one foul. Think about all the media guides and promos that need to be redone now.
Video games.
But what do you think about the Marlins? To me, so much still depends on the health of Josh Johnson.
Well, you know, their pitching staff now was always, well, 3 or 4 years ago, we'd say, boy, they have some of the brightest young pitchers. And now they've had a few seasons, and Johnson hasn't, when he's on the mound, is his best, as great as anyone in the game. But he hasn't been able to complete a full season. Guys like Nolasco have been up and down. You know, Anibal Sanchez has been up and down. So can they get that good starting pitching, the starting pitching they need?
They blew short, and Walters has it for the first out.
They've always had a bullpen that's struggled. Should be a little stronger this year, but their lineup, you know, with the addition of Reyes, is you know, if he stays healthy, they're going to be very formidable.
Their defense has never been a strength either, and you've got Hanley Ramirez moving over to third base.
How's that going to go?
I know. I'm very anxious to see. I think eventually he may wind up in center field.
It'll go well till he boots too. Then it won't go so well.
Well, that's the thing. He's very positive about it right now, but
he wasn't during the winter.
He can be a little volatile, and I don't know if having Reyes around is a positive for him in that regard, or negative, or neither one.
Well, it's all how he views it. If Ramirez buys into it and says, "Hey, we have a chance to have, you know, one of the most, or one of the strongest left sides of the infield in baseball, and let's take that as a team thing." I mean, I don't know how you stop him. Although he's had a couple of down years now, Ramirez. Some to injury, some to his own bad play.
Well, since his batting championship a couple of years ago, stop by Walters, and he gets Baxter at first. That's an outstanding play by Zach Walters.
I'll say that's big league. That ball came up too. Great reaction and a strong throw.
Right fielder, number 20.
That's a big hang with him.
So Walters with a fine play, 2 out and nobody on, and now Adam Lowen bats for the second time. Struck out his first time up. And the other thing about the Marlins this year is that, you know, for the first time, they're going to be playing in a ballpark where there are going to be people every night. No worries about rain delays, no worries about too much heat wearing a team down over the course of the season. And you have to think that's going to have a positive impact.
You know, I knew I was missing something. The bullpen's always been a problem. Well, Heath Bell has moved over there. Sorry about that, folks.
And they've got that new reliever, Juan Carlos Oviedo. Oh, that's right, he's not new. That's the old Leo Nunez moving into the setup role. Low and grounds out. Mets are down 1-2-3 in the bottom of the 8th. We head for the 9th in the spring opener, 3-0 Washington. Miguel Batista, who gave up an unearned run in the 8th inning, back out there for the 9th with the Nats up 3-1. Zach Walters, who made that brilliant play to rob Mike Baxter in the bottom of the 8th, leads off in the 9th and pounds one foul, 0-1. We haven't had a chance to talk about the other big change in Major League Baseball this year, the addition of an extra wild card team, and it kind of dovetails into what we were talking about the strength of the National League East. You could have potentially 3 teams from this division make it to the postseason.
Well, you like to see that, and of course you have the wild card teams having that 1-game playoff. The one thing that you and I were talking about before is you see a couple of relievers for the Nats getting up, is that in the second round they're going to do what they did before, and you saw that happen, Gary, where the team that is the wild card team is going to start at home playing 2 games.
Yeah, and that's just for this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be the 2-3 format with the lower seed getting the first 2 home games and then the better seed getting the next 3. The problem with implementing it this year is that they had already set the dates for the LCS and the World Series, and so they had to shoehorn this extra game of playoffs into the schedule. And the other problem with it is that because winning the division now is so much more important than winning the wild card, that if there's a tie where 2 teams are both going to make the playoffs, they're going to play that game out. Whereas in the past, if both teams were going to get in, they just used head-to-head record and a tiebreaker. Now they're going to actually have to play a game. So now you have the potential of tiebreakers the day after the season, and then the wild card playoff the next day, and then the division series the next day. You can have some really brutal travel as Walters goes down looking for the first out.
Tell me about it.
So, there's a school of thought that they should have waited till next year when they could better accommodate it in the schedule. But I think the whole idea is so attractive, particularly in terms of making the division title a real goal for teams coming down the stretch, as opposed to just kind of cruising in and not caring whether they won the division or the wild card.
And saving your best pitcher for the opening round.
Yuri Perez up for the 2nd time. Sacrificed his first time up.
Well, I think the problem was once the cat was out of the bag, they really wanted to act on it and make sure that it happened.
But that wild card day when those 2 games were played, I mean, you've done game 163s before. You know how much fun those are.
Oh, it's just it's amazing. It's like watching the third overtime in the hockey playoffs. You know, it's just every pitch makes everyone excited. It's I did 2 of them. The greatest one I did, as far as the crowd was concerned, was Chicago against. I want to say Chicago White Sox in Chicago against Minnesota, I believe. Yeah, and all the fans for Chicago wore black, so the entire stadium was just black jerseys. It was wild.
Of course, there is a school of thought that says, well, now a third-place team has a chance to win a World Series. Now, still, baseball will have a lower percentage of teams in the postseason than any of the other major sports. But, you know, there's a traditionalist view that says, hey, you know, we already have enough teams heading for the postseason.
Yeah, and you're going to also get some guys that are on dominant ball clubs now with this new format that are going to have in their career 150 to 200 at bats in the postseason, much like, you know, Derek Jeter or Bernie Williams.
Full count to Perez. And the other thing is, if you have so many teams still in contention, which you will now with another team in each league making the postseason, what's that going to do to the trading deadline? You know, by the end of July, virtually everybody is still going to be alive down the line, and an extra base hit for Perez. And he's got outstanding speed. He'll take a turn at second and hold on there with a well-struck double.
New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Citi. By Time Warner Cable. Enjoy all the things you love better. TV, internet, and home phone from Time Warner Cable. And by Ford.
You know, it used to be the trading deadline was June 15th. Then they moved it to July 31st. Will they have to move it to August 15th?
And I thought that you could never beat what happened on the last day last year with the Red Sox and the O's, Yankees and Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Philadelphia. You add a couple of more teams in there.
Well, that was a perfect story.
It was unbelievable. And the timing of everything. And
well, also, how often does a team come from 7 runs down to the 8th inning? Ever in any game, much less one that counted as much as that did for the Rays. And you call strike to Hoffpower.
You know what's interesting about Philadelphia ended up playing a lot of their non-regulars at the end, but still stayed in there and beat Atlanta. By beating Atlanta and sweeping them out of the playoffs, that gave them St. Louis. And St. Louis swept them out, not swept them, but took them out of the playoffs.
There goes Perez, and it's fouled off. Boy, the amount of running in this game has just been amazing. Both sides.
Well, they come in shape. Everybody's fit as a fiddle down there. At least I looked in the Mets today and down in the clubhouse. Everybody's real fit. That the players come to spring training ready to go.
Keith, I don't think you were in St. Louis, but Gary and I did that game on the Sunday when the Mets came back. And if you had told me on the plane that, you know what, I'm going to go someplace and bet someone that the St. Louis Cardinals are going to win the World Series, we would have taken that bet anytime. No chance they were going to get in the playoffs, never mind the World Series.
Mets were 4 runs down in the 9th, came back and won, and it was over. The Cardinals were done. And then they weren't. Happy flight.
Kind of like the New York Giants this year when they lost that 4 in a row. I'm making my producer very happy here.
Yeah, but then that 99-yard touchdown against the Jets.
Oh gosh, what a move, huh? That just turned that whole thing around.
Victor Cruz was Jeremy Lin before there was a
That's
Jeremy
right.
Lin.
That's right.
Batista, the poet, ahead 0-2. I mean, think of the authorship in that pitching staff. You've got Batista, who's had a novel and poetry, and now you're going to have R.A. Dickey with his tome coming out in the latter part of this month.
Is it going to be mostly about the Kilimanjaro?
No, it's an autobiography.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, he said he's been writing it for 5 years.
Wow.
And I asked R.A. how much of it is actually going to be his writing. He said about 95% of it.
That's fantastic.
Swing and a miss, and Batista takes care of Hoffpower for the second out. I mean, R.A. is a fascinating guy, and he had quite a collaborator. Wayne Coffey followed the team all last year, and he basically served as the editor for R.A.'s words.
And there also a film crew followed him around and Wakefield all season last year, and they're going to have a kind of a documentary on the knuckleball,
of which R.A. is now the only practitioner with Wakefield now retired.
Small fraternity.
Yeah, one. Sigma Delta myself.
There you go.
There's Jeremy Hefner getting ready in the Mets bullpen. He's one of the pitchers the Mets picked up for rotation insurance this offseason, just in case Batista can't finish this top of the ninth. Miguel's already thrown 41 pitches in an inning and 2/3. Of course, he's always had a fairly rubber arm. 41 pitches at age 41.
Only bested by Mr. Moyer, who's back in camp and trying at 50 years old for one more shot.
Amazing, huh?
Right? I painted a room this winter. I was out for like 2 weeks. Bad elbow.
Well, Jamie's not quite 50. He won't be 50 till November.
No.
But this is his 50th year. Bouncing ball for Cedeno. And that'll do it for the Nats in the top of the ninth. So the Mets come to bat in the bottom of the ninth in their spring opener. A couple of runs behind. Last of the ninth inning, Lucas May leads off for the Mets, who trail 3-1. Valdez Joaquin in his second inning of work for Washington misses wide for ball one. Mets will have a split squad tomorrow, and we'll be broadcasting the game here in Port St. Lucie with the Mets taking on the Cardinals. The Mets also have a unit going to Kissimmee to play the Astros, and with the split squad and with David Wright and Scott Hairston unavailable, the Mets are going to bring last year's #1 draft pick Brandon Nimmo over from minor league camp, and he's going to play in the game here tomorrow. That'll be fun to watch.
Nimmo and Santana. Can't wait. I think Kevin and I got it tomorrow, right? You're headed back north. Keith's headed back north.
Well, I got to work. Keith?
Keith's working too.
Is he? Yeah, I just got a little appearance I got to do. I'll just fly up tomorrow and fly back Wednesday.
So it's a brief respite.
It's a turnaround. That's all it is.
3-1 to Lucas May, leading off the bottom of the ninth. And he fouls it back this way.
Everybody clap your hands.
What's your favorite song, Keith?
Oh, I love it.
I love when you clap your hands to that song.
It's in every ballpark.
Yeah, it is.
And May bounces one up the middle for a base hit. Walters made a spectacular play the last time. He wasn't going to get close to that. So the Mets get the tying run to the plate. Geico Sports Night, your nightly source for all things New York sports. Tonight, more on the Mets and Nationals game and everything New York sports. Geico Sports Night, all night, every night, starting at 10:30 p.m. only on SNY. Rob Johnson will come to bat for New York.
He's one of the catchers in camp, right?
Another one competing for a job behind the plate. Has a little bit of major league experience. Another guy known more for his defense than his offense. Played for the Mariners for parts of 4 seasons. Last year in San Diego, hit just 190. Lifetime 197 big league hitter. And a little over 600 at bats. It's the one area where you look at the Mets farm system and you just don't see a likely candidate on the horizon. It's the catching position. And the Mets are going to have to keep on mixing and matching until they either draft a catcher or trade for one or find one on the free agent market. They're going to have to go with what they've got.
And the organizations that have abundance of catching in the minor leagues are able to make good trades.
Well, the Yankees certainly did, turning Jesus Montero around and getting Michael Pineda. That's a great deal for both sides.
Yep.
1-2 to Johnson.
Well, the Yankees, I remember, addressing their pitching problems. And they have always had the hitting. They get into the playoffs and play the big teams, and their pitching can't match up. And I just thought the Pineda deal was really a good deal for the Yanks.
Well, with bringing Pineda and Kuroda, they upgraded their rotation big time.
And the Pirates, who have to be the unluckiest team the last 17 years, they trade for Burnett. He's in doing a bunting drill, bunts it into his orbital socket, and done for 2 months. 3 months, maybe.
Well, maybe in AJ's case, when he comes back in his half a season, he'll bunch all his good starts together.
There you go.
Johnson lays off, and it's 2-2. With that Yankee rotation, with the additions, now Freddie Garcia, who did such fine work for them, is on the outside looking in.
That's right. The only way that he probably gets that 5th starter is if Hughes struggles a little bit in spring training, because Hughes can go to the pen. He's done it before. Well, Garcia can't.
Well, Joe Girardi has said that Pineda's not a lock, but you don't believe that, do you?
Yeah.
Swing and a miss, and Johnson is down on strikes. That's the first down at the bottom of the ninth.
I think they're trying to light a fire under Pineda because he came at the camp a little out of shape. So,
well, he wanted to, he was joining the CC size-alike contest. I mean, do you see the size of those guys?
They're like the Fordham linemen of the day. What were they called? The 7 blocks of granite?
Yep. Here's Ronnie Cedeno up for the second time. Walked his first time up. And he takes slow and inside to the sinker. Well, the Mets can compete. They've got John Roush. He's as big as anybody. I mean, 6'10", 270 pounds, with big bulging eyes. He's scary.
I saw him when he first came up with the Nationals, and boy, he did a great job this year. He's carved himself out a nice career. He got hurt a little bit last season, but he's a guy that, if Francisco doesn't get the job done every single day, you can go to him. He has some experience.
Yeah, last year he had his appendix out. He had a knee problem. There's every reason, especially with just his personality and the way he He doesn't throw 95 the way you'd expect a 6'10" guy to, but he is so tenacious. You expect him to have a good year.
Yeah, it doesn't matter really what he throws, because he throws the ball, starts at the moon. You know, it comes at an angle that players just don't see.
Well, it's like Chris Young last year. We saw that, how difficult it was for hitters to pick up the ball from a guy that size. Hit to third, might be a double play. Rivera to half power and on to first, and that'll do it. The Nats turn the 5-4-3 double play to put an end to this opening spring training game for the Mets, as the Nats win it 3-1.
Well, the one thing I see in the game, Davey Johnson getting congrats for their first win in their third game for the Washington Nationals. That's that the Mets are going to run early and often. 5 stolen bases today, and Dylan G looked strong despite the home run given up to Anquillo.
And Matt Harvey had a nice, successful debut. The young star, a guy the Mets are looking for as a future starter in his ball club. Burdack came in, had a clean inning. You know, it's early in spring. Guys are getting in shape.
And Andres Torres, first game as the leadoff hitter for the Mets, got on base a couple of times and scored their only run. Nats win it 3-1. Back with more from Port St. Lucie in just a moment.